The cold moon sage nodded with satisfaction, his figure transforming into a wisp of illusory smoke and slowly dissipating into the void. Fang Chen put away the candidate palace master token, grasped the lustrous dragon, Phoenix divine core, and strode into the palace. He walked up to Gong Caiyi and said gently, "Caiyi, try taking it." Gong Caiyi had already witnessed everything that had happened outside. Now, overwhelmed by the unexpected favor, she quickly whispered, "Husband, better save it for your elder sister's child." This minor heaven pill had actually alarmed all the sages of Heaven State, and its value far exceeded her imagination. Liu Ruxu gently pressed the jade bottle into her hand and softly urged, "Ze often wouldn't favor one over the other. You should take it first and talk later. The sooner you take this kind of elixir, the better it is for the child." Unable to refuse, Gong Caiyi finally took the first minor heaven pill, produced in 1,000 years from the central earth, into her mouth, under everyone's watchful eyes. As the dragon, Phoenix divine core transformed into a warm current surging into her body, two majestic forces, one red and one white, instantly infused the fetus. Immediately, a strong and rhythmic heartbeat echoed, clear and distinct like a stirring drumbeat in the distance. A formidable, unparalleled life force slowly spread from her abdomen. The anti-bone kid jumped up, stretched out a little paw, and curiously touched Gong Caiyi's belly. As a result, a powerful force directly blasted it away. The anti-bone kid stumbled, its eyes instantly widening to the size of saucers, and it cried out, "How can this be even more outrageous than when I was still in the eggshell?" Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but show expressions of shock. The anti-bone kid was the son of the Azure Dragon Demon Lord, born at the Demon Emperor realm. Could it be that Fang Chen's child, when born, would be even stronger than the anti-bone kid? Lang Qingzhu, Shang Shiqiu, and Yuan Qingsu, who had only recently broken through to the nascent soul stage, felt a wave of dizziness. They couldn't help but begin doubting their own life choices. They had toiled all their lives in cultivation, yet they were still no match for an unborn fetus. What a damnable world where everything depends on having a powerful father. The pavilion master of Heavenly Secrets Pavilion was also despondent for a long while. He gritted his teeth and declared loudly, "All of you in the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion put in serious effort. Otherwise, don't blame others for saying you're worse than a 3-year-old child in the future." Hearing this, the expressions on everyone's faces instantly froze. An image involuntarily surfaced in their minds. A 3-year-old little Fang Chen, having broken through to the late nascent soul stage, stood before them wearing open crotch pants and sucking on a pacifier. And they all respectfully addressed him as senior. Wandering, Cloud trembled, his face turning pale as he hurriedly walked away, muttering, "Stop talking. Is it not okay if I just go into closed door cultivation?" Vice Pavilion Masters Gu Huaxi, Chen Zhengdao, and Yi Kangyuan also felt as if the sky was collapsing and quickly ran off to cultivate in seclusion. The old fellows were miserable, and the young disciples felt unprecedented pressure as well. Everyone shouted, "Closed door cultivation, closed door cultivation. We won't come out until we reach the deity transformation stage." Some also gritted their teeth and echoed, "Seclusion, seclusion, I'm going to pick a fight with that 3-year-old. The disciples of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion dispersed one after another, embarking on an unprecedentedly earnest session of closed door cultivation. Their degree of focus was almost comparable to that before an ancient war with giants. Fang Chen was somewhat speechless, turning to the Pavilion Master and asking, "Pavilion Master, why frighten them?" The Fang Shan Yipin Pavilion Master, sensing the fetus's formidable life force, twitched the corner of his mouth and replied, "This is not frightening them. If they do not reach the deity transformation stage within the next 4 years, being worse than a 3-year-old child will not be a joke but a heart-wrenching reality. And this is not even taking into account the possibility of you becoming a sage in the future. If you do, the fetus's potential will rise again. They might end up worse than a 1-year-old child." Fang Chen was stunned. This minor heaven pill was simply too powerful a supplement. Gong Caiyi, upon hearing this, excitedly hugged Fang Chen's arm and said in a trembling voice, "Thank you, husband." Fang Chen's treatment of her and their child was impeccable. Even if Fang Chen were to abandon her in the future, she would harbor no resentment, having lived through this time. The Compassion Mirror Great Supreme was also beaming with joy, extremely eager for the birth of this little grandson who was the apple of everyone's eye. She beckoned to Gong Caiyi with a smile. "Caiyi, come, let me share with you my experience of giving birth back then." Gong Caiyi nodded happily and followed the Compassion Mirror Great Supreme into a room to exchange stories, leaving behind the women who cast envious glances. The mother's status rises with her son. Gong Caiyi was now the recipient of 1,000 favors. Fang Chen breathed a sigh of relief. He had always felt guilt for leaving Gong Caiyi and the child stranded on the continent for months. Now he had finally compensated the mother and child. Counting the time, there were still several hours until the merit assembly, so he said, "Everyone disperse. Tomorrow will be very lively. Let's adjust our conditions." He returned to the secret room alone and took out the Thunder Mountain, gifted by the Thunder Annihilation Sage. Fang Chen's eyes gleamed with a sharp light as he murmured, "The Thunder Annihilation Sage actually gave me thunder power." Does he not know that the young emperor wants me dead for the void flow, thunder strength? Or is he sending a signal to ease the conflict between us, telling me he supports me? In any case, Fang Chen had long decided to restart his cultivation of the void flow, 5 strengths. Before, due to fear of the young emperor's pursuit, the void flow, 5 strengths had been forced to a standstill. Now, there was no need to worry about any of that. Whether it was his own strength or external allies. Below the sage level, he feared no one. He immediately closed his eyes and began to digest the Thunder Mountain, using the power of thunder to crazily refine the meridians within his body. The void flow thunder strength, stagnant for so long, began to grow again. 2 hours later, only a corner of the Thunder Mountain's base remained, and his void flow thunder strength had leaped from its initial minor accomplishment to the complete perfection stage. He could see lightning coursing through his body, filling his meridians, flesh, bones, and even his hair. Even when he breathed, traces of thunder force were inhaled and exhaled. Wherever his gaze fell, flashes of electricity could be seen. His entire being had transformed into a thunder person, brimming with the power of lightning from head to toe. Fang Chen suddenly clenched his 5 fingers, and a crackling thunderclap erupted in his palm, causing the surrounding space to ripple and burn. He marveled inwardly. The difference between minor accomplishment and perfection in the void flow was astonishing. He had once cultivated the void flow fire strength to major accomplishment, but the power he unleashed was only around the mid-nascent soul stage. But now, the void flow thunder strength in perfection was comparable to the might of the 3 decays of the deity transformation stage. If it successfully hit an enemy, its power was no less than the great accomplishment of the Grand Yan Sword Array. A glint of joy flickered in Fang Chen's eyes. The void flow thunder strength could also be used as a trump card. If he launched a sudden close quarters attack on someone, a 3 decays heavenly being cultivator would definitely be severely injured. A 4 decays heavenly being cultivator would also be seriously affected, revealing a fatal opening. However, Fang Chen then grew puzzled. He mused, "The void flow 5 strengths states clearly, when the 5 strengths unite as one, no sage can rival, and you become invincible. The implication is that when all 5 void flow strengths are cultivated to perfection, one can even fight existences like the 3 calamity sages and the 9 suns giant emperor. Yet the power of one perfected strength is only at the deity transformation, stages 3 decays of heavenly man. Could it be that when each perfected strength is superimposed, the power continuously increases?" Fang Chen's eyes showed a thoughtful look. He continued murmuring, "Come to think of it, my void flow fire strength is at major accomplishment. If I cultivate it to perfection, I can test the difference of superimposing the fire and thunder strengths. However, the flame power required from major accomplishment to perfection is probably astronomical." Referring to that Thunder Mountain, unless a sage proficient in the flame path bestows a gift, it would be extremely difficult to gather the massive flame power needed. Suddenly, a thud knock came from outside the door. Fang Chen flicked his sleeve, and the stone door opened in response. Outside stood a peerless beauty in a snow-white dress, her face as dreamlike and ethereal as an immortal's. It was the Cloud Robe Fairy. Fang Chen asked in surprise, "Yun Sheng, why have you come?" The Cloud Robe Fairy lowered her head silently, entered, closed the stone door, bit her red lips, and hesitated to speak. After a long while, she finally spoke softly. "Fang Lang, is it very difficult for a union between humans and the demon race to produce offspring?" Fang Chen was taken aback at first, but then he immediately understood what was on the Cloud Robe Fairy's mind. She had been by Fang Chen's side all along, receiving the most rain and dew, yet she had never conceived. In contrast, Gong Caiyi had succeeded on the first try. It would have been strange if she hadn't had any thoughts about it. Fang Chen's expression couldn't help but become solemn. He recalled that the Six Paths Taoist had once said with a complicated look that unions between different races would inevitably incur heavenly retribution. Presumably, the heavenly chasm he spoke of referred to the black feather on Bai Xin's chest. Then, does that mean he and Fairy Yunsheng either had no children, or their children would also have hidden flaws like Bai Xin? Gazing at Fairy Yunsheng's complicated expression, Fang Chen raised his hand, pulled her from a distance into his embrace, and said softly, "Don't worry. I've once seen a descendant of a human and a demon. That proves that humans and demons can indeed have offspring." Fairy Yunsheng instantly recalled who that person was. Lu Jiolin. Her crystalline eyes immediately brightened, reigniting a trace of hope, and she whispered, "Then between us." Fang Chen smiled and continued for her, "It means we haven't been trying hard enough." Fairy Yunsheng's immortal face flushed slightly as she shyly lowered her head. Fang Chen's heart raced, and he gently laid her down. "Ah, wait." Fairy Yunsheng suddenly sat up, her face even redder, and said in a low voice. Fang Chen was first stunned, then enlightened. Sister Ruxu said, "It might be my method that's wrong," and told me to learn more from Sister Caiyi. That might increase the chance of pregnancy. It turned out that Liu Ruxu had seen through Fairy Yunsheng's secret thoughts long ago, and had specially encouraged her to come to him. She herself hasn't gotten pregnant yet, but she turns around and arranges opportunities for other women. No wonder that Yunsheng and the others all hold Ruxu in such deep respect from the bottom of their hearts. A trace of curiosity suddenly arose in Fang Chen's heart, but what exactly was Yunsheng supposed to learn from Gong Caiyi? His gaze was first confused, then quickly turned to understanding, and finally grew intensely blazing as he stared fixedly at the beauty before him. Under that scorching gaze, Fairy Yunsheng's stunningly beautiful face had long since flushed crimson with shame. She took a deep breath, slowly bent her slender waist, and then lowered her head. Her jet-black waterfall, like long hair, gently cascaded behind her head with her movements. Atop the roof of the mobile palace, Venerable True Words, clad in a goose, yellow long skirt, sat alone hugging her knees, lifting her fair neck to stare infatuatedly at the cold moon in the sky, lost in thought. The watery moonlight spilled down, enveloping her graceful, exquisite figure, as if draping her in a layer of hazy, dream-like gossamer. Just then a soft radiance suddenly lit up at the horizon, and the jade paper heavenly book drifted out lightly. The tiny, delicate spirit of the lecherous sage crawled out from the book, lazily lying on the page, and also gazed up at the night sky in imitation of her posture. She looked at Venerable True Words' profile and teased, "What's the matter, Zioyan? Could there be some peerless handsome man hidden on that moon?" Venerable True Words still gazed at the horizon and said softly, "I'm thinking of my father. I wonder where he has drifted to now, and whether he is doing well." Although Fang Chen had successfully made a great vow and preserved a wisp of her father's remnant soul, the void is incredibly perilous. If he doesn't reach a major world in time, that remnant soul will eventually wither and die in nothingness. Hearing this, the smile on the lecherous sage's small face froze, so she was missing her dad. She quickly sat up straight, coughed dryly, and consoled, "Ah, a good man always has heaven's blessing. Besides, that venerable Thousand Charms who was buried with him has a great background. With her there, she will surely protect your father." Venerable True Words gently nodded her pointed chin, but the irresolvable sorrow between her brows showed no sign of fading. The lecherous sage sighed inwardly, plotting in her heart that she must find a way to cheer Zioyan up. But she looked around, and for the life of her couldn't find any decent topic of conversation. Suddenly, her gaze turned and glanced toward the secret chamber where Fang Chen was. Her lively eyes instantly lit up, and a mischievous smirk curled at the corners of her mouth. "Zioyan, you are now clearly the woman Fang Chen is going to formally marry. You ought to take some time to educate him a little." Venerable True Words turned her head with a puzzled look. "He's fine. Why should I go educate him? Besides, with his current strength, how could I possibly educate him?" The lecherous sage covered her mouth and let out a giggle of wicked laughter. "What I mean is, oral tilde edu tilde ka tilde tion." Venerable True Words found it both funny and frustrating. Oral education is no good either. I wouldn't dare educate him. What if I upset him and he turns around and educates me instead? What then? The lecherous sage giggled without further explanation, simply reaching out her finger and drawing a circle under the bright moonlight. In that instant, light rapidly gathered within the circle, rippling like water waves, and actually coalesced out of thin air into a crystal, clear screen of light. The scene reflected in the light screen was unmistakably Fairy Yunsheng tying up her long hair, her graceful head bobbing up and down ceaselessly before Fang Chen. At the same time, the lecherous sage leaned close to Venerable True Words' ear, deliberately elongating her soft, sweet tone, and slowly breathed out a few words with a puff of air. "Oral tilde edu tilde ka tilde tion tilde." Venerable True Words almond-shaped eyes abruptly widened round. She raised her arm in panic and smacked the floating light screen to pieces with one slap. Her stunningly beautiful face, capable of causing the downfall of nations, instantly began to burn from the ears like a wildfire of scarlet clouds, swiftly dyeing her entire cheeks red. Furious and mortified, she snatched up the jade paper heavenly book and hurled it far away, her heart pounding like thunder in her chest. So, this was the so-called oral education in the lecherous sage's mouth. Venerable True Words' face was completely red. She desperately ordered herself not to think about those shameful images, but the scene she had just witnessed seemed etched into her mind like a branding iron, churning and replaying madly, impossible to shake off. Giggled Tilda, hugging the jade paper heavenly book. The lecherous sage floated back, grinning and pressed. How about it? Want to go and also give him a good, hard oral education. Venerable True Words, overflowing with shame and fury, suddenly pulled out the Phoenix Feather Nine, flame fan, and swung it at her, shouting hastily, "I'd rather die than." However, halfway through her words, she abruptly stopped, as if choked by something, forcibly biting off the rest of the sentence. As Venerable True Words, the words that come from her own mouth, admit absolutely no backtracking. Whenever it's something uncertain, she cannot so much as lightly utter a single word. What if she truly wanted to do it someday in the future? What then? Seeing Venerable True Words choke, tup embarrassment, the lecherous sage grew even more smug, laughing gleefully. "I'm really looking forward to the day you harshly educate Fang Chen, Tilda." The next day, as dawn broke, Fang Chen was brimming with energy, feeling incredibly refreshed. The exhaustion from days of refining the minor heavenly pills had been completely swept away. He reached out and pushed open the door. Rays of resplendent nine, colored clouds from the horizon immediately cascaded down, bathing the courtyard in flowing radiance. At some point, layers of auspicious clouds had blossomed in the sky above the Qinshan Observatory, and waves of grand Tao ripples, carrying ancient rhythms, leisurely spread out in all directions. This was unmistakably the omen that the Merit Grand Assembly was about to commence. Several divine transformation, great powers, such as the Master of Fang Chen First Grade Pavilion, had long been hovering with solemn expressions above the mobile palace, waiting for the ancient sage's bestowal to descend. Seeing this, Fang Chen hurriedly straightened his robes, tapped his toes, and also transformed into a streak of light to soar into the air. After steadying himself, he scanned around and was astonished to find that the void surrounding the Qinshan Observatory was already densely packed with countless divine transformation experts. Among them, there were over 70 experts from the 6 regions, while the experts from the Tian region numbered as many as over 80. Inwardly astonished, Fang Chen thought, both sides are the surviving elites of that unprecedented bloody battle. In comparison, the number of divine transformation cultivators in the Tian region is actually somewhat higher. From the standpoint of the divine transformation stage alone, the saying, "the Tian region can match 8 regions," is truly no exaggeration. As he pondered, his gaze focused, and he spotted a young man in a silver robe. The young man was extraordinarily handsome, with a peculiar crescent moon mark imprinted on his forehead. The fluctuations of cultivation emanating from him had clearly reached the 5 decays of heaven, man stage. Surrounding him were a group of highly skilled divine transformation venerables, all handsome men and beautiful women, each bearing distinct moon marks on their foreheads. Fang Chen's eyes flashed as he speculated these people must be disciples of the Moon Palace, right? Right then, he also saw people from the young Emperor Mountain. All of these mighty figures cultivated fierce and domineering thunder power, their bodies wreathed in writhing lightning serpents. There were actually over 20 great divine transformation powerhouses. If we estimate by having their battle losses, then before the Great War, the divine transformation cultivators of the young Emperor Mountain exceeded 50, didn't they? Compared to the meager foundation of taking Great Province, a mere 4 divine transformation cultivators and 1 bodhisattva. The might of young Emperor Mountain needs no superfluous words to describe. However, Fang Chen scanned around and saw no sign of the young emperor among this group. For him not to appear even on such a momentous occasion, it seems the rumors were true. He is indeed grievously wounded. Next, a group of monks radiating serene Buddhist light entered Fang Chen's sight. Their number was also about 20. It seems the strength of the Buddhist kingdom is equally formidable. Finally, coming into view were the disciples and members of the various great divine sects and schools. Among them, the Medicine God Hall sent over a dozen divine transformation experts, their power second only to the Moon Palace. As for the other great divine sects, those with more members had no more than 9, while the weaker ones had only a single divine transformation cultivator to hold up their facade. Even so, were such a force placed in taking Great Province, it would become a colossal entity, surpassing the Three Gods sect. The terrifying foundation of the heavenly province, this once again fiercely shook Fang Chen's heart and mind. Yet among these brilliantly stellar sects, there was one force that appeared especially peculiar. It was a sect possessing 9 divine transformation venerables. The leader was actually a great venerable whose cultivation had reached the 5 decays of heaven and man. Moreover, he looked exceptionally young, merely in his early 20s. And the other disciples following behind him, the weakest, had also attained the 2nd decay of heaven and man, while the rest were at the 3rd or 4th decay. In the entire sect, one could not find a single weakling at the 1st decay. With such a lineup, even the prodigy, packed young Emperor Mountain, Buddhist Kingdom, or Moon Palace would probably struggle to assemble such a uniformly high-level group of divine transformation disciples, wouldn't they? Fang Chen, suspicious and astonished, flew over to the Pavilion Master's side and asked in a low voice, "Pavilion Master, what force is that to be so formidable?" The Master of Fang Mountain First, Rank Pavilion, merely glanced in that direction and answered immediately in a deep voice, "Reincarnation Mountain." A powerful force that, in just 100 years, rose from nothing to shocking prominence. At its peak, it had 20 divine transformation experts overseeing it, and even 2 great venerables. Had they been given another 100 years to develop, even becoming the #1 power in Heavenly Province would not have been impossible.
What?
20 divine transformation experts and 2 great venerables. Fang Chen's heart clenched. He asked in alarm, "This Reincarnation Mountain, what exactly is its origin?" Without an extremely terrifying sage-level powerhouse backing it from behind, it would be absolutely impossible to build such a vast enterprise within 100 years. What's more, this is Heavenly Province, where experts are as common as dragons and heavenly geniuses emerge in droves. The Master of Fang Mountain First, Rank Pavilion, showed a deeply reverent expression and said slowly, "No need for amazement. Because the founder of Reincarnation Mountain is none other than one of the Central Plains' rare few, a 3 calamities sage. 100 years ago, he returned from the legendary source of all evil, left behind his legacy and countless cultivation resources, then drifted away."
What?
It was actually a 3 calamity sage. Hearing this, Fang Chen couldn't help but draw a sharp breath. He had witnessed the boundless terror of the 9 Suns giant emperor and knew all too well how dreadful a 3 calamity sage was. No wonder Reincarnation Mountain could rise so rapidly within 100 years. With such an invincible backer, who under heaven would dare offend them lightly? Fang Chen secretly committed the faces of Reincarnation Mountain's members to memory, then glanced around again. His brows slightly raised, he asked, "Pavilion Master, speaking of which, what about the force founded by the Azure Holy Sun? Why haven't they shown themselves from the war's start until now?" He dared not forget the Azure Holy Sun, even for a moment, that viper lurking in the shadows. Until this fiend is eliminated, he will never have a day's peace. The Master of Fang Mountain First, Rank Pavilion, furrowed his brows and said gravely, "Wanyan Sage's force. He has no force, yet his influence is everywhere." Fang Chen was puzzled. What exactly did that mean? He remembered that Star Elder Caiyi once mentioned the Azure Holy Sun enjoyed immense prestige in the Central Plains, revered by countless cultivators. If he doesn't even have his own sect, how could he boast immense prestige? A deep worry flashed in the Pavilion Master's eyes as he explained, since Wanyan Sage stepped into the Sage realm, he has never founded a sect. Instead, he has been secretly supporting various sects that lack a sage. The extent of his network spans all 8 provinces of the Central Plains. Especially in Heavenly Province, the sects that have received his favor are simply too many to count. He often raises the banner of supporting the weak and eradicating evil, helping small and medium sects stand against powerful ones. He also frequently, under the name of philanthropy, provides cultivation resources to stragglers and minor sects lacking resources. Though he himself hides no one knows where, his influence is as pervasive as the air itself. Thus, in the cultivation world, some cultivators are so grateful they honor him with the title, the shared sage of the 8 provinces. Over the years, no one can say clearly how many hidden forces loyal only to him he has secretly cultivated. Hearing this, Fang Chen felt a chill run up his spine and secretly grew wary. Shared sage of the 8 provinces. Such methods were indeed the Azure Holy Sun's usual tactics, always presenting a perfect public image to win the hearts of the world. No wonder he became one of the only 4 peerless geniuses in 1,000 years to step into the sage realm. Among those 4, Tianluo Sage stole destiny under his manipulation to enter sagehood, while the 9 Nether Demon Lord relied on the power of his demonic ancestor bloodline. The Asura Holy Sun's foundation is probably far more unfathomable than imagined. The ancient Zen Buddha Lord relied on the massive foundation of the Buddhist kingdom to achieve his current status as Buddha Lord. To think the Asura Holy Sun could enter sagehood through accumulated merit, who knows how many hearts he has won over, perhaps no fewer than the 100,000 giants of heaven's remnant city. Only now did Fang Chen suddenly realize that a hidden, deeply malignant tumor lurked within the central plains. If he secretly incited his followers to commit some extreme acts, the consequences would be unimaginable. Pausing, Fang Chen raised a brow and asked in surprise, "Wait, why shared sage of the 8 provinces?" The pavilion master looked at him and explained heavily, because he never sets foot in taking great province. As he spoke, a bitter, complex smile crossed his face. "I once resented him for that. Why wouldn't he help my Fang Mountain First Rank Pavilion expand its business into the 9 provinces? Now I think it's fortunate he didn't come. Otherwise, just rooting out the hidden believers within the pavilion would have drained endless energy." Suspicion deepened in Fang Chen's heart. Was the reason this man stayed away because he feared the Cloud Wilderness ancient saint who guarded the continent? If he had known this earlier, Wanyan Sage's suspicion could almost be directly confirmed. He raised his eyes. Here were nearly 200 divine transformation cultivators and nearly 30,000 nascent soul cultivators from Heavenly Province. His heart slowly tightened. Among these people, just how many are believers of Wanyan Sage? And how many, after learning his true identity, would still follow him to the death, wreaking havoc everywhere? He could only hope that the sages of Heavenly Province would remain vigilant. At that very moment, auspicious clouds churned violently in the sky, swirling madly around the Imperial Observatory and condensing into a colossal vortex that blotted out the sun. 9 ancient and time-worn black stone tablets slowly descended from the depths of that vortex. The tablets seemed to have endured the weathering of eons, their surfaces covered in mottled inscriptions, exuding a thick, ancient charm accumulated over vast time. Even more, they carried a trace of majestic, awe-inspiring aura that made one want to prostrate in worship. Even Fang Chen, so proud that he would not bow to a sage or kneel to a saint, felt an irrepressible urge to bend and worship. Looking around, everyone, from the great venerables at the 5 decays down to the nascent soul cultivators, were all bowing deeply or kneeling outright. The master of Fang Mountain First Rank Pavilion's eyes shone with reverence and excitement, his voice trembling. Those are the meritorious virtue steel of the 9 ancient saints. They possess independent consciousness and will bestow merit upon each person according to their own considerations. Fang Chen pondered briefly, and understanding dawned in his heart. The Central Plains are not only home to humans, and among humans, there are not only the Dharma, cultivation, lineage. Behind some Taoist lineages and races, ancient saints stand guard. They naturally tend to bestow merit upon the inheritors of their own lineages. If Fang Chen himself became a saint, he would certainly give extra care to the human race. That is hardly reprehensible. As long as it is not excessively partial, it counts for little. At that moment, Fang Chen saw that the 9 stone steels were deeply engraved with names. 10,000 years had flown by, yet the characters remained clear and striking. The names on the list were not many. Some steels had only a dozen or so, some merely a scant few. On one of the steels, a familiar set of characters abruptly crashed into Fang Chen's vision. Northern Mystic Sword Sovereign. Fang Chen's pupils contracted. He couldn't help but let out a low exclamation. The Tower Lord of Fangshan, First Grade Pavilion, chimed in. These 9 steels each record the heroes who performed unparalleled deeds in the ancient Titan Wars. 10,000 years have passed, yet those able to ascend the list are but a mere 20 odd individuals. Fang Chen inwardly clicked his tongue in amazement. Over the 10 millennia, how many peerless geniuses have been born in the Central Plains? Amidst the ages of ancient Titan Wars, how many heroic figures have emerged, worthy of songs and tears? Yet those whose names remain on the steels number fewer than 20. One can only say, those who can leave their names on the Saint Steel must be historical heroes who single-handedly altered the fate of the Central Plains. One wonders, in this current age of the Central Plains, is there still anyone able to leave a name upon them? As the steels manifested, several auras imbued with the might of sages flickered over, notably the ancient Zen Buddha Lord, the Thunder Annihilation Sage, the Cold Moon Sage, the Raceless Sage, as well as the Divine Artisan Sage from the Divine Weapon Province, and the 9 Nethers Demon Lord from the Myriad Demons Great Province. The 6 sages all bowed deeply to the steels. Gazing at the names above, their eyes held reverence, yet also churned with intense, unconcealable envy. To leave a name on the steel is to shine through eternity. No sage could resist such honor. Alas, they themselves likely had no hope. The Heaven Province's performance in this battle was mediocre and unremarkable, far from qualifying for inscription on the steels. Just then, the 9 steels trembled lightly, in unison. Threads of brilliant golden radiance abruptly surged forth, dyeing heaven and earth in a wash of gilded luster. The grand exalts of the 5 decays of heaven and man present were all stirred with emotion. The pavilion master of the heavenly secret pavilion clenched his fists tightly, utterly unable to calm the tension in his heart, and muttered, The merit rankings are about to begin." Fang Chen also gazed over, his eyes full of curiosity. He saw that the names on the 9 steels all vanished, the surfaces turning into blank slates, and simultaneously, lines of text emerged. "5th place on the Ancient Saint of the Demon Race, Merit List, 9 Nether's Demon Lord. 5th place on the Buddhist Ancient Saint Merit List, Ancient Zen Buddha Lord. 5th place on the Confucian Ancient Saint Merit List, Anonymous. 5th place on the Cloud Desolation, Ancient Saint Merit List, Anonymous. 5th place on the Eternal Ancient Saint Merit List, Silver Moon Grand Exalt. 5th place on the Sky Protecting Ancient Saint Merit List, Thunder Annihilation Sage." Seeing this, Fang Chen finally understood why they were divided into 9 steels. The divergences between them were indeed significant. The demon race backed the people of the demon race, the Buddhists backed the Buddhist people, the Confucians naturally backed Confucians, and the Cloud Desolation, Ancient Saint backed Fang Chen's people. After this summary, among the 9 divine merit steels, a total of 3 placed the Tower Lord of Fangshan 1st Grade Pavilion at 5th place, while even the Mighty Sages and the Silver Moon Grand Exalt of Heaven Province had only received a single nomination each. From this, it could be seen that the merit assessment was, on the whole, still fair. A monumental feat like the Tower Lord of Fangshan 1st Grade Pavilion, who threw himself into the scheme, lured 3 Titan Emperors down to the mortal realm, and personally slew. One of them would not ultimately be buried. After the rankings were settled, a golden feather descended from each of the 9 divine merit steels. These feathers, compared to the small feathers that descended when Fang Chen performed rites for the deceased, were fully 10 times larger. They floated gracefully down onto the corresponding powerhouses. One of them flew to the Silver Moon Grand Exalt. The broad feather resembled a luxurious feathered cloak, gently draping over his shoulders. The divine halo at the back of his head abruptly emitted a dazzling golden radiance, and behind him, the faint outline of a smaller divine merit steel loomed majestically. But after a violent quivering, that outline ultimately lacked enough merit and collapsed with a thunderous crash, dissipating. Failure to condense the divine merit steel meant one could not enter sagehood. The Silver Moon Grand Exalt's face instantly paled, his body staggering. He was caught and steadied by the hand of the Cold Moon Sage beside him. Far too lacking. Cold Moon Sage gave a long, disconsolate sigh. The greatest advantage of the younger Grand Exalts was their immense potential. Having cultivated to the 5 decays of heaven and man in a short time was proof enough of their extraordinary strength, often allowing them to achieve great merit in war and secure higher rankings. Yet their fatal weakness was equally lethal. They had too little tempering experience, having not accumulated enough merit. If the merit gained from the great battle was insufficient, their ascension to sagehood would fail. The Cold Moon Sage's most favored candidate was precisely the Silver Moon Grand Exalt. After all, he was a member of his lunar palace. For him to take charge would naturally be more reassuring. Alas, the Silver Moon Grand Exalt ultimately still fell 1 step short. The Silver Moon Grand Exalt clenched his jaw and said unwillingly, "Palace Master, I still have hope. Perhaps the remaining 8 steels will place me as 4th. As long as I gain 1 more layer of merit, my sagehood will be nailed down." Hearing this, the Cold Moon Sage could only show a mouthful of bitterness. Even this 5th place nomination had been obtained with difficulty, all thanks to the favoritism of the sky-protecting ancient saint who originated from Heaven Province. To seek the 4th rank was nothing short of delusional. The other nominated sages also each obtained a layer of merit. The temple phantasm behind the ancient Zen Buddha Lord grew even more vast and magnificent. The Thunder Annihilation Sage 2nd Divine Merit Steel also condensed a crystal, clear phantom image. Regretfully, it still lacked 1 layer. The most peculiar was the 9 Nether's Demon Lord. When the descending merit landed on him, it transformed into searing golden blood that gurgled as it merged into his body. His already supremely domineering Twin Calamity Realm aura instantly became even more hot-stopping, faintly capable of rivaling the ancient Zen Buddha Lord. Seeing this, Fang Chen's hanging heart finally settled. It seemed his earlier worries were superfluous. He had thought that someone like himself, who had not yet reached the 5 decays, would have nowhere to store merit even if he obtained it. Would it not all go to waste? It turned out that for those who temporarily had no use for merit, the steels would flexibly convert it into nourishing resources needed for their current realm. At the same time, 3 enormous golden feathers successively superimposed upon the tower Lord of Fang Chen, first-grade pavilion. The divine halo at the back of his head greedily absorbed that colossal merit, abruptly becoming brilliantly ultimate, like a golden sun bursting forth, radiating boundless light. Hat nearly blinded onlookers. The several sages, visibly moved, stepped forward one after another. The Cold Moon Sage said with infinite emotion, for hundreds of years, "Finally, there is a new Dao friend." The Grand exalts present all war expressions of complex, ineffable envy. There is nothing in the world that makes them feel more complexly emotional than watching a peer ascend to sagehood with their own eyes mingled with sincere envy and surging with boundless, bitter regret. At this moment, Fang Chen's eyes were filled with excitement. Indeed, the Tower Lord of Fang Chen first-grade pavilion was about to reach that stage as well. They saw his sun-brilliant divine halo thunderously melt into flowing golden liquid, slowly casting into a golden steel over 10 feet tall behind him. Once this steel fully solidified, it would mean successful sagehood. From that moment on, he would become a leader guiding all living beings of the Central Plains. However, just as the casting had passed the halfway point, the remaining golden liquid suddenly dried up. The half-illusory, half-substantial steel emitted a series of crisp cracks like shattering glass and began to slowly disintegrate. The Cold Moon Sage's expression changed slightly, blurting out, "It actually failed. He is an old generation, 5 decays cultivator. Could it be that he hasn't accumulated even the slightest thread of merit normally?" The other sages also revealed expressions of astonishment. By their calculations, 3 great feathers of merit plus decades of accumulation should have made sagehood a certainty. Fang Chen's face, however, abruptly changed. He knew where the problem lay. Though Fang Chen first-grade pavilion was a power, it was ultimately a place of business. The Tower Lord, his subordinates, and the clients they dealt with were all linked by profit. Where was there any faith? And where would merit come from? The Tower Lord of Fang Chen, first-grade pavilion, seemed to have anticipated this. He gave a slight sigh and said slowly, "This is fate." Fang Chen's eyes showed pity. The Tower Lord had sacrificed so much, yet in the end he would have to stop right before sagehood. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration struck his heart. He remembered something. He glanced at the divine steel that had not yet fully collapsed, and with a mere thought entered the spatial mirror. Then, through the air, he made a grasping motion at the little Killin's round belly. In an instant, the divine merit pearl that the little beast had swallowed was extracted. Originally the size of a grape, after several accumulations of merit, the divine merit pearl now shone as lustrous and radiant as a hen's egg. After all, the little Killin would soon hold all his merit on his behalf. He might as well borrow it for a while. Without a second thought, Fang Chen seized the moment before the divine steel completely disintegrated and hurled the divine merit pearl straight into it. The instant the divine merit pearl touched the steel, it transformed into a surging torrent of golden liquid, roaring as it flooded upward. Like parched land receiving sweet rain after a long drought, the crumbling steel immediately began to solidify anew at a speed visible to the naked eye. Fresh golden liquid poured in endless waves, and the divine steel continued to harden. When fewer than 10 drops of golden liquid remained, a deep, resonant hum reverberated. The divine steel had completely solidified from its illusory state into a true and tangible stone monument. The divine merit steel was forged. Upon the steel, line after line of characters surfaced. Hereby recorded, there was a great nameless venerable who used his own body as bait to lure 3 Titan emperors down to the lower realm. He aided the Grand Libationer in slaying one and wounding another, and personally eliminated yet one more. As the great edifice was about to collapse, he turned the perilous tide, sheltered all living beings, and amassed boundless merit. In recognition, he especially bestowed a divine merit steel, the Taoist title Nameless Sage, to foster the central continent, and his deeds shall be remembered for 1,000 outums. Thereupon, the divine merit steel transformed into a streak of golden light, and instantly merged into the body of the Lord of Fang Mountain Premier Pavilion. His body immediately underwent an earth-shattering transformation. His divine transformation realm physique was reborn as a sage's body that would never decay with the passing of ages. His divine transformation realm power was qualitatively transformed into sage power, capable of tearing apart the barriers of the world with bare hands. A sage aura, one that made all beings tremble and prostrate in awe, slowly emanated from him like flowing water. The Lord of Fang Mountain Premier Pavilion slowly opened his eyes, a faint glimmer of moisture flickering within them. His voice quivering and strained with suppressed excitement, he said, "I have finally reached this step." In that very moment, the stifling gloom that had weighed upon his heart for countless years was completely and utterly released. He could no longer maintain the composure and unruffled calm of the past. Fang Chen laughed resoundingly. "Congratulations, nameless sage." The Lord of Fang Mountain Premier Pavilion swept the tears from the corners of his eyes, stepped forward, and embraced Fang Chen tightly. He uttered not a single word of gratitude, for the thankfulness in his heart was already beyond what any words could convey. Young Emperor Mountain congratulates fellow Taoist Nameless on attaining the Sage Realm. The Medicine God Hole congratulates fellow Taoist Nameless on his successful attainment. The Moon Palace congratulates fellow Taoist Nameless on entering sagehood through merit. The Buddha Kingdom congratulates the Central Continent on gaining yet another sage. The Divine Weapon Province congratulates the Nameless Sage of taking Great Province. The Myriad Demons Great Province congratulates the human race on gaining yet another Sage Realm expert. The 6 sages offered their congratulations in unison, their voices shaking the entire sky. Yet their gazes, all laden with unconcealed shock, fell squarely upon Fang Chen. They had assumed the Lord of Fang Mountain Premier Pavilion's failure to enter sagehood was already decided, never expecting 2 unforeseen events to occur in succession. The first surprise was that Fang Chen actually possessed a divine merit pearl. The second surprise was that he was willing to bestow this divine pearl upon the Lord of Fang Mountain Premier Pavilion. One must understand that a divine merit pearl requires decades, even a century, of accumulation, or the accomplishment of monumental deeds in chaotic times before it can condense. Yet Fang Chen gave it away without the slightest hesitation, solely to help the pavilion master enter sagehood. The lips of the several sages moved, all of them wished to ask Fang Chen whether he had any surplus divine merit pearls. But at that very moment, the divine merit steels of the 9 ancient sages began to shudder with intense violence once more. The 4th name was about to appear. Demon Race Ancient Sage Merit List, 4th place, Star Abyss Great Venerable. Buddhist Ancient Sage Merit List, 4th place, Star Abyss Great Venerable. Confucian Ancient Sage Merit List, 4th place, Star Abyss Great Venerable. Cloud Desolation Ancient Sage Merit List, 4th place, Star Abyss Great Venerable. Immortal Ancient Sage Merit List, 4th place, Samsara Mountain Lord. Heaven Protecting Ancient Sage Merit List, 4th place, Star Abyss Great Venerable. The 4th place was settled. Star Abyss Great Venerable dominated 7 stone steels. No trace of doubt could be found in the crowd's eyes, only deep and profound reverence. This 4th place was fully and justly deserved by Star Abyss Great Venerable. True Word Venerable burst into a flood of tears, her delicate frame trembling as she murmured, "Father, you have received the acknowledgement of 7 ancient sages." Fang Chen stepped forward and gently drew her into his embrace, his voice warm. "Star Abyss Great Venerable is a role model to all in the Central Continent." True Word Venerable said nothing, merely resting her head on his shoulder and weeping silently. At that moment, 7 grand merit feathers drifted serenely down from the divine steels. It was worth noting that the merit feathers belonging to the 4th place were noticeably larger by a full circle than those of the 5th place. This signified an even greater possibility of entering sagehood. They floated lazily in midair for a while, discovered that Star Abyss Great Venerable was not present, and then plunged straight into the void, setting off to seek their master. True Word Venerable lifted her head and stared longingly in the direction the feathers had vanished, yearning to follow them at once. But how could she traverse the void? She could only gaze in desolation as they faded into nothingness. Fang Chen took in every detail of her forlorn expression, and his arm silently tightened around her a fraction more. A sharp pang of pain stabbed through his heart. He knew that sooner or later, True Word Venerable would have to leave him. Afterward, the divine steels trembled once more. The 3rd place was about to appear. Demon Race Ancient Sage Merit List, 3rd place, Young Emperor. Buddhist Ancient Sage Merit List, 3rd place, Young Emperor. Confucian Ancient Sage Merit List, 3rd place, Young Emperor. Cloud Desolation Ancient Sage Merit List, 3rd place, Samsara Mountain Lord. Immortal Ancient Sage Merit List, 3rd place, Young Emperor. Heaven-protecting ancient sage merit list, 3rd place, Samsara Mountain Lord. Under the increasingly calm and steady gazes of the crowd, the 3rd place was likewise decided. Young Emperor claimed 6 stone steels for himself, while Samsara Mountain Lord secured 3. Aside from these two, no one else could contend with them. A tinge of bewilderment arose in Fang Chen's heart. Exactly what kind of deeds had young Emperor accomplished to rank even higher than Star Abyss Great Venerable? Just then, 3 even larger Grand Merit Feathers floated into view. At this point, the Merit Feathers were as large as a bedspread. They descended upon the young man of Samsara Mountain, who was afflicted with the 5 signs of heavenly decay. Including the one he had received during the 4th place revelation, he now held 4 Merit Feathers in total. Under the watch of the crowd, the divine halo behind him melted into golden liquid, and a divine merit steel was successfully forged behind him, with golden liquid even left in excess. The Lord of Fang Mountain Premier Pavilion and the assembled sages immediately stepped forward to offer their congratulations. On this day, the central continent gained yet another sage. But what everyone anticipated even more eagerly was the other figure. Young Emperor, the one hailed as the strongest beneath the sages, the foremost expert of the central continent's divine transformation realm. The proud, domineering, and cold prodigy, a king who strode the line between righteousness and evil. Now, with 6 merit feathers in his grasp, what kind of earth-shattering sage would he become? What astonishing meritorious inscription would appear upon his divine merit steel? The 6 grand merit feathers soared from the divine steels and flew straight in the direction of young Emperor Mountain. Yet, under the entire world's stunned gaze, lightning suddenly erupted in the sky. A gargantuan hand, formed entirely of raging thunder, tore through the void and seized all 6 grand merit feathers in its grip. Then, its 5 fingers clenched viciously, the 6 grand merit feathers were brutally compressed into a single divine merit pearl the size of an apple. A domineering and frigid voice rumbled out from young Emperor Mountain, shaking every corner. When I enter sagehood is not for the saints to decide. As his words faded, the great thunder hand, clutching the divine merit pearl, swiftly withdrew into the distance. A deathly silence fell between heaven and earth, with only the cold, proud voice of young Emperor echoing unceasingly among the clouds. True word venerable was dumbstruck. Young Emperor refused sagehood. Fang Chen was equally caught off guard. He could not help frowning in deep thought. Did young Emperor refuse because he was still injured, or out of fury at being ranked 3rd? After all, this was the very man who, for a mere sliver of merit from the 5 elements divine lord, would not hesitate to hunt someone down. It went to show just how fiercely he desired sagehood. It was utterly nonsensical to so resolutely refuse sagehood when 6 grand merit feathers lay within reach. What startled him even more were the comments that immediately broke out among the sages. Cold Moon Sage hollered toward young Emperor Mountain, his voice filled with aching dismay. Lei Mai, has your young emperor lost his mind? Compressing the saints' bestowed merit feathers into a divine merit pearl has directly wasted over half of their merit. Our Moon Palace's silver moon great venerable longs for just a little more merit and cannot obtain it, yet he carelessly lets half the merit required for sagehood go to waste. As Cold Moon Sage watched, his chest surged with roiling blood and Kai, and his blood pressure shot straight to the heavens. Hearing this, the traceless sage instantly bristled, his beard flaring and eyes glaring with fury as he cursed, "That scoundrel! A perfectly good chance to earn merit for sagehood has been completely ruined by his meddling, vanished without a trace." The other sages near by all wore expressions of pure indignation. No one had anticipated that the young emperor would suddenly pull such a move. Fang Chen showed surprise and pressed on. The merit feathers, once compressed into merit divine pearls, would have their power halved. Why is that? The true word honored one wiped away the tears at the corners of his eyes, slowly sinking into reminiscence, and said gently, "When I was a child, I once heard my father speak of this. Merit is inherently one's own. It must never be transferred to outsiders, unless you are willing to diminish your own merit, forcibly compressing it into a merit divine pearl." Fang Chen now suddenly understood. No wonder the little killen's belly contained them, and what the Wutong great sovereign had left behind were all merit divine pearls, whereas the merit he earned through his own deeds always remained in the form of feathers. This arrangement was surely meant to prevent the strong from plundering the weak of their merits. Imagine if a sage demanded merit from the 5 decay celestial. Would the latter dare not utter the word give? But once given, the merit would be forcibly halved. That sage would then have to carefully weigh whether such a ruthless act was truly worth it. While such evil deeds cannot be entirely eradicated, at least this imposes a certain limit to some extent. Just then, the merit divine steel trembled violently once more. The second rank was about to appear. On the ancient sage, merit ranking of the demon clan, second place, grand libationer of the Taikang Great Province. On the ancient sage, merit ranking of Buddhism, second place, grand libationer of the Tian Province. On the ancient sage, merit ranking of Confucianism, second place, grand libationer of the Hunyuan Province. On the ancient sage, merit ranking of Yunhuang, second place, grand libationer of the Myriad Demon Great Province. On the ancient sage, merit ranking of immortality, second place, grand libationer of the Divine Weapon Province. On the ancient sage, merit ranking of Heaven God, second place, grand libationer of the Holy Spirit Province. This second place selection was also entirely within everyone's expectations. The 9 grand libationers were the stabilizing boulders of the Central Plains, and this battle had relied entirely on them to sustain the battlefield against the giant emperor. Otherwise, would there have even been any talk of battle at the divine transformation level? What was somewhat intriguing was that the 9 steels, with remarkable tacit understanding, each nominated a different grand libationer. Not a single grand libationer received an extra nomination. It was so evenly distributed, as if they had discussed it among themselves beforehand. Still, the grand libationers receiving such merit was a great and joyous outcome that everyone welcomed. And so 9 even larger merit feathers, each like a sumptuous carpet, flew off toward the imperial observatories above the 9 provinces. Inside the imperial observatory of Tian Province, a terrifying aura erupted with a thunderous roar. As one merit divine steel slowly ascended, a phantom of a second merit divine steel, bathed in a cascade of golden liquid, was completely solidified. The ancient Zen Buddha Lord's eyes flashed with sharp light. Slowly pressing his palms together, his voice boomed like a great bell, Amitabha. Congratulations to the Tian Province Grand Libationer, who has endured the baptism of calamity and broken through to the 2 calamities realm in one stroke. Thus, the Central Plains gained yet another mighty combatant capable of standing shoulder to shoulder with the 6 Suns giant emperor. Before the crowd's exhilaration could even settle, the divine steel sent forth yet another tremor. The first rank was about to emerge. Many people almost simultaneously turned their gazes toward Fang Chen, their expressions extraordinarily complex. If the Star Abyss Great Sovereign and the 9 Grand Libationers were truly worthy of their titles, then Fang Chen was beyond all doubt. From before the battle until its midst, he had reversed the overall situation several times, repeatedly performing glorious feats of arms that stabilized the very cosmos. All the sages present, upon reflecting on themselves, felt deeply ashamed of their own inferiority. If even these accomplishments could not secure him the undisputed first place, then what possibly could? Moreover, he had also represented the Central Plains and seized first place in the primal wild hunt, bringing back that war-free steel, averting a calamity of heaven and earth, shaking proportions for all living beings for the next millennium. Who in this world could compare to such a magnificent feat, such boundless merit? If he were not first, that would be the greatest oddity under heaven. The crowd merely speculated in their hearts how many steels would name him as first place, for it was known that every single merit feather for first place was immensely vast. Just 3 feathers would suffice to forge a merit divine steel. With 9, wouldn't it propel a great sovereign straight to the 3 calamities sage realm in a single leap, becoming the foremost existence under the saints? Just as hearts swelled with fervor, the 9 divine steels successively revealed the nomination for first place. On the ancient sage merit ranking of the demon clan, first place, Fang Chen. On the ancient sage merit ranking of Buddhism, first place, Fang Chen. On the ancient sage merit ranking of Confucianism, first place, Fang Chen. On the ancient sage merit ranking of Yunhuang, first place, Fang Chen. On the ancient sage merit ranking of immortality, first place, Fang Chen. On the ancient sage merit ranking of Heaven Guard, first place, Fang Chen. Fang Chen first across all 9 steels. Though many had already anticipated this, when this scene truly materialized before them, the sages present still felt a surge of overwhelming, face-to-face shock. The Cold Moon Sage murmured, "I recall that even the Northern Profound Sword Lord back then did not achieve first across all 9 steels, did he?" The Thunder Annihilation Sage fixed his gaze upon the steel, drew a deep breath, and said in a grave voice, "The Northern Profound Sword Lord only attained first on 6 rankings. Back then, the Confucian, demon, and Buddhist lineages each promoted their own candidates. But now, even those three steels no longer show favoritism toward their own. The traceless sage was utterly shaken to the core. Slowly shaking his head, he sighed, "In all of history, there has never been a first across all 9 steels. Those who could even break into the top 5 rankings, which one of them didn't stake their very lives to carve out an indelible war honor, who would ever yield to another. Fang Chen is the first and the only one to claim first across all 9 steels." At these words, the entire assembly instantly fell into a deathly silence. For 10,000 years, the one and only figure unanimously recognized by the ancient sage wills regardless of race, regardless of lineage, as the undisputed first had now been born. After a brief silence, the arena erupted into earth-shaking tsunami-like cheers. "We are witnessing history, An achievement that even the glorious peak era 1,000 years ago could not attain has been accomplished in our so-called dying generation, ha ha ha. Storms shroud the ages, yet heroes rise from our ranks. Who dares say the new cannot surpass the old? 9 steels unite as one, a name that cuts through past and present. Laugh and ask the heroes under heaven, who dares to contend?" Fang Chen had not only won for himself an honor that would dazzle the ages, but had also secured for their era, which should have been one of decline, a resplendent glory that will de-illuminate eternity. Posterity would forever remember that in the Central Plains' darkest and most decadent era, someone had used both fists to carve out a brilliant new world, rewriting the history of the Central Plains with his own blood. Several sages personally approached Fang Chen and offered their congratulations. Even the 2 calamities, Sage Realm experts, the ancient Zen Buddha Lord and the 9 Nether Demon Lord, gave their heartfelt felicitations. For the Central Plains to produce such a figure that stirred the winds and clouds of all ages, they, as contemporaries, shared in the honor. Strong warriors from every province also stepped forward to congratulate him, their eyes brimming with admiration. Even the previously obscure Heavenly Secret Pavilion garnered widespread attention from the provinces, as people eagerly inquired about the specifics of Fang Chen's sect. For a moment, the scene was extraordinarily lively. Just at that moment, the 9 divine steels suddenly blazed with golden light, and 9 gigantic merit feathers, large as rooftops, gracefully fluttered out, drifting slowly toward Fang Chen. Everyone turned to look, their eyes all blazing with intense fervor. This merit was simply far too much. If these 9 feathers were bestowed upon a single great sovereign, reaching the 3 calamities realm in a single day would be no mere empty boast. Under the focused attention of myriad eyes, the 9 merit feathers flew above Fang Chen's head. But just as they were about to drape over him, a formidable sage power descended out of nowhere, forcibly blocking the 9 feathers in midair, preventing them from landing. This instantly caused the brows of several sages to furrow deeply. Someone actually dared to openly obstruct another from receiving their awarded merits. This was an unprecedented matter. Even from within the Imperial Observatory, the Grand Libationer's furious roar erupted. "Insolence! The saint bestows merit. How dare you obstruct it?" Everyone followed the source of that sage power, and the one obstructing was none other than the Samsara Mountain Lord, who had just stepped into the sage realm. Facing the surging public outrage, the Samsara Mountain Lord remained neither servile nor overbearing. With utmost reverence, he retrieved a jade figurine from his bosom. The figurine's features were carved to appear exceedingly aged and remarkably lifelike, especially its pair of eyes, which truly exuded an aura of having gazed down upon all living things for far too long, both indifferent and majestic. Even more astonishingly, that jade figurine slowly came to life. It clasped its hands behind its back, stepped across the void, and emitted an infinitely ancient voice. "It is I." As the voice rang out, the Grand Libationer of the Imperial Observatory was suddenly taken aback. Great Reincarnation Sage. "Is it you?" The title of Great Sage is typically an honorific used by beings below the sage rank. But if this title is used among sages, then there is only one possibility. The one addressed has already reached the pinnacle of sagehood. Just as within the deity transformation stage, those facing the 5 declines of heaven and man are honored as grand supremacy. The Great Reincarnation Sage before them was a genuine sage of the 3 calamities. Hidden within the jade figure was undoubtedly a wisp of his soul that he had left behind. Learning that this was the Great Reincarnation Sage, the ancient Zen Buddha Venerable immediately pressed his palms together. Ancient Zen greets the Great Sage. Sage Thunder's End, Sage Cold Moon, Sage Traceless, and Sage Heavenly Artisan all respectfully offered salutations as well. Even the unruly nether demon monarch showed respect on his face and solemnly clasped his fist. With a whoosh of tearing through the air, the Grand Libationer of Heavenly Province from the Imperial Observatory flashed out. His build was extraordinarily burly, his neck thick and red, his face covered with fierce flesh, giving off a fierce impression that he might fly into a rage at any moment. He sized up the jade figure from head to toe and said in a deep voice, "No wonder you came back 100 years ago to establish this so-called reincarnation mountain. It turns out you were sealing a wisp of your soul as a precaution against unforeseen disaster." Only then did everyone suddenly understand. So that's why 100 years ago, the great reincarnation sage suddenly returned to the Central Plains, founded a sect, tossed out a batch of resources, and then hurriedly left. It turned out that the true purpose of founding the sect was to protect the split soul he had secretly left behind. The great reincarnation sage sighed helplessly, his voice weathered. The source of all evil is brewing a dark tide that will sweep across the myriad heavens and 100 realms. We sages on the battlefield are highly likely to fall within this tide. So we had no choice but to leave such a backup contingency. The great reincarnation sage looked around at everyone and slowly said, "Those like me who have never seized another body to reclaim their cultivation can still leave behind a split T-soul as a precaution. Those who lost their chance at body snatching can only leave behind descendants so that their line is not cut off." At these words, several sages' hearts stirred, and they simultaneously cast subtle glances toward the young Emperor Mountain. The person being referred to was already obvious without asking. The Grand Libationer of Heavenly Province snorted coldly, "I have no objection to you leaving a split soul in the Central Plains. But what exactly do you intend now?" He raised his hand to point at the detained Merit, his demanding roar as cold and sharp as ice. The great reincarnation sage shifted his stance to gaze upon the 9 strands of Merit, his eyes surging with fiery light. He spoke, "So much merit, given to a mere second decline of heaven and man, is that not a waste? If given to me, even if my main body dies, this remnant soul can use it to recover on the spot to the 3 calamities stage. That is truly maximizing the use of the merit." Several sages frowned, but were not particularly surprised. The moment they knew he was a remnant soul, everyone had already anticipated the purpose of the great reincarnation sage split soul appearing. Who wouldn't want this merit? It's just that they could not bring themselves to lose face by openly seizing it. Fang Chen's heart chilled. Before coming, the Grand Libationer of Taking Province had warned him that the little Killin carrying too much merit would easily attract covetous eyes. He never expected that before the little Killin could absorb the merit, someone would pop out to intercept it halfway. This was earned by him time and again with his life. This great reincarnation sage, with just a single excuse of maximizing merit, intends to snatch it away. Considering that the other party was on the outer celestial battlefield, dealing with the source of all evil, Fang Chen suppressed his displeasure and cupped his hands. "Senior, and if this junior were willing to yield the merit, you cannot restore your cultivation on the spot here. After all, you need to perform a body snatching first. But right now, there is no suitable sage corpse in the Central Plains for you to seize." The only sage who had fallen in the Central Plains was the benevolent Heart Sage, slain by Fang Chen. But that body was already incredibly aged, and Fang Chen had drained its blood dry, making it long unsuitable for possession. The great reincarnation sage glanced at Fang Chen and sneered, "If I wish to seize a body, what difficulty is there?" As soon as his voice fell, the master of Reincarnation Mountain and a group of deity transformation cultivators behind him uniformly knelt on one knee. They said in unison, "We are willing to give up our physical bodies and follow the great sage unto death." Implied meaning they were all willing to become vessels for the great reincarnation sage body snatching. Even the Reincarnation Mountain Master, who had just entered the sage realm, was no exception. In an instant, the entire venue fell deathly silent. These words, that seemed like loyal protection of their master, sounded in everyone's ears with an indescribable sense of horror. No wonder the great reincarnation sage spared no expense to boost his disciples' strengths, each of them at least at the second decline of heaven and man. It turned out these disciples were old bodies he had prepared in advance for body snatching. Fang Chen furrowed his brow, a nameless discomfort in his heart. Such conduct, what difference was there from the demonic path? But precisely because the great reincarnation sage was currently bleeding and fighting for the Central Plains at the source of all evil, the great reincarnation sage stood with his hands behind his back and said indifferently, "Junior, hand over the merit to me, and in the future I will take you as a disciple and you become a sage, which is not out of the question." Fang Chen's frown tightened even more. With so much merit, even if compressed into a merit divine pearl. It would, in the future, guarantee 100% entry into the ranks of sages. What need was there for the great reincarnation sage charity? The Grand Libationer of Heavenly Province shouted in a deep voice, "Fang Chen, if you are unwilling, just straightforwardly refuse. No one can forcibly rob you." Fang Chen's heart eased upon hearing this, and he said without hesitation, "This junior's merit has its own use. Senior, please look for merit elsewhere." Several sages secretly breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that refusal was best. Where was the reasoning in publicly coercing a junior to forcibly extort merit? If this precedent were set, wouldn't the sages in future merit assemblies compete to imitate this? Over time, the scraps of merit earned by the weak through near death struggles would all be toiling in vain to benefit the strong. In the future, who would still fight to the death for this? This trend must absolutely not be allowed to grow. The great reincarnation sage frowned. "Young man, being so attached to merit is not good. You must learn to consider the bigger picture, understand?" With the Grand Libationer backing him, Fang Chen no longer had any fear and spoke bluntly, "My merit can be given, but you cannot snatch it. As for the bigger picture, I am the first on the 9 tablets. What about you, senior? Have you ever been nominated as first? How many sacred tablets have nominated you as first? In terms of the bigger picture, this junior is no less than you." As these words fell, several sages inwardly cheered. Indeed, fighting at the source of all evil is battle, but is guarding the central plains and protecting the homeland not battle as well? Those who constantly invoke the greater good are often the ones who truly lack consideration for the bigger picture. As if to show support for Fang Chen, a muffled rumble sounded, and the 9 sacred tablets vibrated once more. The surface of the tablets restored that ancient time-worn aura, and once again displayed the names of the heroes forever recorded through ages. At the tail end of the last name, a golden, dazzling light suddenly flickered. That golden light meticulously outlined 2 characters on the stone tablet. The name Fang Chen was swiftly engraved upon it. And just the same, nominated on all 9 tablets. Every ancient sage, merit divine tablet acknowledged Fang Chen's supreme honor of eternal renown. The gazes of the sages present were all shaken once again. This was the highest honor for sages of the Central Plains. Absolutely unparalleled. Fang Chen, with a body of deity transformation, had actually surpassed all contemporary sages and successfully left his name. And he left his name on every single tablet. Looking through history, those who have achieved this can be counted on the fingers of one hand. Even the indifferent gaze of the great reincarnation sage couldn't help but tremble. Such an extraordinary honor he, as a 3 calamities sage, had never attained. The Grand Libationer of Heavenly Province laughed heartily, as expected. After all, as the first on the 9 tablets, if even he could not leave his name on the tablets, that would truly be strange. He looked at the great reincarnation sage and snorted coldly, comparing the bigger picture with one who has left his name on the tablets. "You cannot compare." The great reincarnation sage's eyes remained calm as still water, saying, "Very well." This sage only asked casually, "Since you are unwilling, I shall not force it." It slowly stepped back onto the shoulder of the reincarnation mountain master, and once again transformed into a tiny jade figure. The reincarnation mountain master gave Fang Chen a deep look, withdrew his sage powers, and led his disciples to retreat. Those 9 merit feathers, now unhindered, gently landed on Fang Chen under the envious gazes of the crowd. His body could not bear them, so the feathers fell into the little Killen's body. Due to the change of host, the 9 feathers compressed one after another, finally condensing into a fist-sized, oversized merit divine pearl that sank into the little Killen's belly. The long, slumbering little Killen was bloated to the point of opening its drowsy eyes, but it stretched out its short little paw to rub its belly, rolled over, and lay back down to continue its cute slumber. Fang Chen's mouth twitched, thinking, could it be going to sleep like this forever? Moreover, such a large merit divine pearl was enough for a grand supremacy of the 5 declines of heaven and man to directly achieve sage status. Since the little Killen could receive the merit, it must also be at the grand supremacy level, right? Yet why was no merit divine steel cast into being? Or perhaps there was another reason the little Killen could receive the merit. But in any case, the merit was preserved after all. This is far better than exchanging it for other resources. After all, resources can be bought and sold, but merit is extremely difficult to obtain. At that moment, the 9 divine steels shook once more, and feathers of merit, large and small, shot forth, landing upon all present who had earned merit in the war against the ancient giants. For those unable to receive the merit, once the merit landed on them, it transformed into corresponding resources. Red Demon Great Venerable's cultivation rose directly from the third heaven, man declined to the fourth heaven, man decline, and his fragmented soul was greatly mended. Venerable True Words, on the other hand, gained sufficient enlightenment to allow her to break through to the third heaven, man decline at any time. The spirit liquid gifted earlier by Venerable, No Trace, also proved tremendously useful. All the spirit transformation cultivators who had rendered illustrious service in taking Great Prefecture, including Venerable Heart Demon, Ice, Fire Demon Lord, Jiang Wuya, Bodhiso, TTVA Pingshan, Shu Buxu, and others, received massive advancements. Even the two Asura clan powerhouses, Green Pearl and Minj, Asura King, were bestowed a precious resource by the merit divine steel of the ancient saint of Cloud Wilderness. For a time, cries of surprise, laughter, and the commotion of Ondus, bot breakthroughs rose and fell in waves. This completely dispelled the somber atmosphere after the great battle, leaving all who fought deeply satisfied. Furthermore, the 9 merit divine steels sent out streams of merit force, flying to the various prefectures to reward the nascent soul cultivators who had contributed, ensuring that everyone who fought desperately for the Central Earth received their due reward. Finally, the 9 merit divine steels slowly sank into the vortex of Kai and vanished without a trace. The sky, filling auspicious clouds, also began to disperse. The various sages and powerhouses of the prefectures prepared to depart one after another. Fang Chen's eyes flashed. As if prepared in advance, he soared into the sky and proclaimed in a ringing voice, "Fellow Taoists and seniors, please hold. Regarding the ancient giants, I have something to say." Sage No Trace pulled back his half-step with an embarrassed chuckle. "You should have said so earlier." Hearing the first half of the sentence, he reflexively prepared to flee. But he was older, after all, and his reaction was half a beat too slow. 3 of them, Sage Thunder Extinction, Sage Cold Moon, and Ancient Chan Buddha, had already faded into invisibility without a trace. But upon hearing the latter half, they returned to their original positions without the slightest flush of embarrassment or racing heart. Only the 9 Nether Demon Lord, innocent of the sinister ways of men, and Sage Heavenly Craftsman were left standing alone where they were. Those powerhouses of the 9 prefectures, already preparing to leave, also halted their steps and looked back. As the foremost name on the 9 steels, and a peerless figure inscribed on the stone tablets, Fang Chen's authority weighed as immovable as Mount Tai in the hearts of the people, especially regarding the matter of the ancient giants. His words carried an authority that others could scarcely match. Fang Chen slowly surveyed the entire assembly, his gaze sweeping over every face, and declared, "Now that the powerhouses of the 9 prefectures are gathered here, I, Fang, have a plan that I wish to discuss with all prefectures." Upon these words, the powerhouses of Taking Great Prefecture suddenly straightened their expressions, their eyes sparkling with keen light. They had long known of the plan to counterattack the heavenly realm, and wholeheartedly agreed with it from the depths of their hearts. But thinking again, they knew that relying on Taking Prefecture alone was utterly impossible. They had to commit the entire strength of the Central Earth. At that moment, ancient Chan Buddha, with an impassive expression, loudly intoned a Buddhist declaration, "Benefactor Fang, please speak." Fang Chen drew a deep breath, and as if wind and thunder surged in his chest, he pronounced each word with heavy force. "I propose that we attack the heavenly realm." The instant his words fell, ancient Chan Buddha's eyes, which had been as calm as an ancient well, trembled violently, and his long eyebrows fluttered. The several sages were also shaken to the core, their complexions abruptly changing. A bone-chilling terror surged in the hearts of the powerhouses from every prefecture. Attack the heavenly realm. What an utterly foreign, utterly insane notion. For 10,000 years, the Central Earth had only ever cautiously guarded against the heavenly realm, time and again withstanding their cold invasions. Attack the heavenly realm. Had they ever dared to even consider such a phrase? So much so that the moment Fang Chen made his proposal, the entire scene fell into a bone-crushing silence. No one opposed, no one agreed. Every face was frozen in profound bewilderment. Their reaction had long been within Fang Chen's expectations. For even he, Fang Chen, had only forged this resolve unwaveringly after witnessing with his own eyes Star Abyss Great Venerable sink Hunyuan Prefecture and lead away nearly all main forces of the heavenly realm's ancient giants. Before that, he had only dared to imagine that distant future deep within his heart. Fang Chen's expression grew ever more solemn, his voice like a resounding bell. "Star Abyss Great Venerable has taken away all the giant kings of the heavenly realm, along with 10 Yes, of thousands of ancient giants. My friends, this is the weakest moment the heavenly realm has faced in 10,000 years without exception. We have been oppressed by the heavenly realm for a full 10,000 years, time and again bringing untold suffering to the central earth. For this deep blood feud, if not now, when shall we avenge it? Those ear-shattering words violently shook the hearts of everyone present. The battle-hardened powerhouses, whose fighting spirit had just subsided, saw it reignite fiercely under these words, and their chests surged with hot, surging emotion. Their generation had not only withstood the ancient giants with flesh and blood, but was also going to take the initiative to march against the heavenly realm. What a heroic undertaking, what dazzling glory! The mighty spirit transformation cultivators were moved, and the sages were equally struck by this sudden, heaven-shaking plan. One must know that their predecessors, having spilled their heart's blood, had only dared to envision annihilating the invading forces on their own soil. Yet their generation was about to storm the very 9 heavens of the heavenly realm. The mere thought flashing through their minds set the blood in their bodies ablaze. But just as their blood boiled, a voice of opposition still rang out. Ancient Chan Buddha pressed his palms together and sighed deeply. Amitabha, the central earth lies in ruin, everything awaits revival. This is precisely the time to rest and recover. To rashly attack the heavenly realm, if carelessly done, would plunge the central earth into an abyss of eternal damnation. These measured Buddhist words poured over them like a basin of cold water, quickly cooling their seething hearts. Indeed, though the heavenly realm was weak, the central earth had likewise suffered unprecedented devastation. Nearly all factions had lost over half their strength. The central earth now only retained half of its power. If they attacked the heavenly realm now and all these forces were buried there, would the central earth have a future? Fang Chen slowly raised his hand, holding the war, averting steel steadily in his palm, his gaze profound and far-reaching. This war, averting steel, can only spare future generations. 1,000 years hence from a single great calamity of war. But what of the people 2,000 years from now, or 3,000 years? In every millennium to come, what shall our descendants do? At this, the heavenly realm's weakest moment, if our generation does not utterly annihilate them, then what we leave to posterity is endless calamity and suffering. When that time comes, will our descendants not complain that our generation missed this golden opportunity? Will they not curse us as the eternal sinners of the central earth? Hearing this, ancient Chan Buddha's fingers, which had been turning his prayer beads, gradually stilled. He was left speechless. And the 4 elder sages, Sage Thunder Extinction, Sage No Trace, Sage Cold Moon, and Sage Heavenly Craftsman, who had truly lived through the Golden Age 1,000 years ago, felt a sudden, indescribable resonance in their hearts. Their generation had overdrawn the entire Central Earth's resources, poured everything into building that seemingly glorious era of pinnacle strength, yet in the end still suffered a crushing defeat, leaving the contemporary Central Earth impoverished and feeble. Had it not been for the successive emergence of those tragic heroes, shining like starlight, who desperately fought to turn the tide, the Central Earth would have long perished. Sage Cold Moon's face was filled with shame. She slowly closed her eyes, and when she reopened them, they were filled with unshakable determination. She shouted with a voice that rang like steel striking stone, "Let us no longer leave boundless disasters for those who come after." If it can bring eternal peace to the Central Earth for 10,000 generations, what does it matter if our generation is spent? Sage No Trace's weathered eyes also burst forth with scorching firelight as he glared around him. The great war that should have ended 1,000 years ago has dragged on to our generation, creating how many bloody tragedies. If we do not destroy the heavenly realm now, must we wait for the ancient giants to rally their forces and continue to torment our descendants? Sage Thunder Extinction let out a desolate sigh to the heavens and asked in a low, powerful voice, "Sinners of the era, can we afford to become that once more?" The 3 sages' sonorous, splitting interrogations resounded across the boundless firmament, making all present clench their fists until their knuckles popped. Yet still no one dared to make the first stance. This was by no means cowardice. This expedition could very likely bury the vast majority of the contemporary powerhouses of the Central Plains. Those who first supported it with the slightest misstep would become eternal sinners in history. The entire assembly sank once more into a suffocating silence. The sages exchanged heavy gazes, their expressions grave, and oddly, none took the lead. Amid this stifling silence, someone finally spoke. But that voice did not come from Take, in Great Province. Young Emperor Mountain seconded. Fang Chen looked over in stunned disbelief. He never imagined that the first from the Central Plains to endorse his motion would be the young emperor with whom he had once borne an unending feud. And with the young emperor taking the lead, the remaining factions surged forth like a bursting dam, clamorously echoing their support. Medicine God Shrine approves. Moon Palace also approves. Divine Weapon Province approves. 10,000 Demon Great Province approves. Taking Great Province unconditionally approves. In a flash, the multitude of powers present all resolved to fight, leaving only the strongest, the two-calamity realm Ancient Chen, Buddha Venerable. The Ancient Chen, Buddha Venerable, pressed his palms together, hesitated for a long time, then finally parted his lips, Amitabha. The Buddha says, if I do not enter hell, who will? Our Buddha land is willing to fight again, sacrificing our lives for all sentient beings. At last, all the sages of the Central Plains agreed. Counting the newly appointed sages, Fang Mountain first, rank Pavilion Master and Reincarnation Mountain Master, plus the 9 great libationers, there are now 17 sages in the Central Plains. Meanwhile, the ancient giants of the heavenly realm have 7 giant emperors, plus the 10 degenerate sages of the Central Plains, totaling 17. The only remaining uncertainty is how many Asura emperors the Dark Asura tribe still conceals. Rumbling. Without warning from the Stillunts, scattered auspicious clouds overhead, the 9 divine steels abruptly emitted a heaven-shaking resonance. The auspicious clouds surged and coalesced, and in midair they condensed into 2 lines of heart, stirring colossal words. Invading the heavenly realm is deemed equivalent to resisting the ancient giants. This short sentence meant that as long as they achieved military merits in the heavenly realm, the meritorious divine steels would once again bestow vast merits. This caused many great venerables, who had not yet become sages, to light up with hope, overjoyed beyond expectation. Silver Moon, Great Venerable, was so thrilled his voice quivered, shouting, Palace Master, I still have hope. If the merits accumulated this time were still insufficient, with the addition of the expedition's merits, there would be great hope to advance further. The sages were equally overjoyed beyond their wildest dreams. They never imagined that Fang Chen's proposal to invade the heavenly realm would also earn merit rewards. The Ancient Chen, Buddha Venerable, who moments ago still harbored some misgivings, now revealed a relieved smile. Those nascent soul cultivators, who had tasted the sweetness of merits, and the spirit transformation powerhouses not yet promoted to great venerables, were even more delighted, joy tinging their brows. The opportunity to gain merits a second time utterly ignited a fervent will to battle in the heavenly realm. Fang Chen himself was also beaming with joy, though he could not use merits at present. Such things where naturally more is better. If enough were accumulated, when he later entered the 5 decays of heaven and man, he would no longer fear the obstruction from the merit karma barrier. Fang Chen inhaled deeply, and once more declared loudly to all directions, furthermore, rest assured, before the expedition begins, I will do everything possible to secure Rian for cements at the sage level for our Central Plains. I vow to everyone that in one battle we will shatter the heavenly realm and utterly annihilate the ancient giants. Hearing there would be sage-level reinforcements, everyone grew even more exhilarated, as if the heroic vision of themselves riding auspicious clouds and charging into the heavenly realm was already unfolding before their eyes. A sharp whoosh rang out as the space beside Cold Moon's sage rippled slightly, and a figure suddenly materialized through teleportation. Her immortal robes billowed gracefully, beneath her feet shimmered a patch of frost, white moonlight, and in her arms she gently cradled a snow-white rabbit. Her beauty was breathtaking, her aura exquisitely unique, radiating an indescribable classical elegance, like the moon goddess Chang stepping straight out of mythological tales. And she was none other than Qin Xiling. Or rather, it might be more fitting now to call her Moon Venerable. Moon Venerable tilted her head slightly upward, gazing at the figure suspended against the celestial canopy, a faint haze of dazedness spreading through her silver pupils. Back when they first met in Lonely Boat City, he was still a little mute who couldn't utter a word. But now he was a man of the hour who had convened the entire 9 provinces of the Central Plains, and personally launched the great expedition into the heavenly realm, a milestone in history. The vast disparity in status and fortune made everything before her seem utterly surreal. Cold Moon's sage glanced sideways and asked softly, "Weren't you in seclusion, deliberately keeping far away from him? Why did you suddenly come out?" Moon Venerable's gaze remained firmly fastened on Fang Chen as she murmured with mixed feelings. First tops the 9 steels, then inscribes his name on the steel, and now an expedition to the heavenly realm. How could I possibly remain seated? Today's heavenly province is seething with a fervor. 100 times greater than when we battled the Dark Asura tribe. Even if I sealed off my 5 senses, I could still keenly feel the emotions of the powerhouses from every province surging like tidal waves, making it utterly impossible to calm and why mind for cultivation. Cold Moon Sage suddenly chuckled, her smile ambiguous and pressed. Then do you regret having someone deliver those heartless words of complete severance to him? Moon Venerable's expression abruptly hardened, and she said with icy decisiveness, absolutely no regret. Silver Moon, Great Venerable, beside her first breathed a slight sigh of relief, then complained, Moon Venerable speaks rightly. Palace Master, Moon Venerable has already promised me that when we both reach the Sage Realm, she will become my Tao companion. I ask you to refrain from such misleading remarks. Cold Moon Sage smiled without a word, but inwardly she was making calculations. Is breaking through to the Sage Realm for both of you truly that easy? After an entire war against the ancient giants, how many have stepped into sagehood? Merely a handful. If Moon Venerable could bring herself to swallow her pride and, together with Chen Xiling, follow Fang Chen, she might have the chance to obtain that meritorious divine pearl comp, wrest from 9 merit feathers, and enter sagehood in a single step. Relying on oneself to become a sage is far too difficult. Moon Venerable also remained silent. She hasn't even recovered from the 5 decays of heaven and man. How can she even speak of entering sagehood? Unless she completely gives up on striving and chooses the shortcut through Fang Chen. Otherwise, on her own, it would take at least centuries to accumulate enough merits. Seeing that neither of them paid him any attention, Silver Moon Great Venerable snorted coldly, Don't overestimate Fang Chen. The ancient giants he deals with, are they as troublesome as the Asura tribe we face? Bizarre talents, powerful physiques, unity and fearlessness far beyond the giants. If they had to face the Asura tribe, they would have crumbled long ago. Hearing this, both Cold Moon Sage and Moon Venerable slightly furrowed their brows. That's rather a biased statement. They have both dealt with the ancient giants. Those giants are hardly as simple as Silver Moon Great Venerable describes. However, the Dark Asura tribe is indeed extremely troublesome and not much weaker than the ancient giants. As the 3 conversed, the sages had a brief exchange, and one of them summarized aloud, We have a general understanding of the ancient giants. But how much strength does the Dark Asura tribe still possess? Only a small fraction of them should have descended to the heavenly realm. Without grasping their overall strength, this journey carries immense risk. Fang Chen flew down and laughed dismissively. What's so difficult about that? You must have captured quite a few Dark Asura prisoners, right? Just interrogate them and it's settled. Woundless Sage shook his head and sighed. We have no prisoners, not a single one. Fang Chen couldn't help but be stunned. After such lengthy warfare, how could there be no prisoners at all? Cold Moon Sage's gaze turned toward young Emperor Mountain, a flash of fear in her eyes, and she said slowly, When the Dark Asura tribe retreated, we pursued in victory, never expecting to fall into the enemy's lure. A 9 Hells Asura king had been lying in ambush atop the skyscraping black pillar, and he launched a fatal strike at us, intending to shatter us along with half of heavenly Provi. And see, it was the young emperor who unleashed a blow at the 3 calamities level to neutralize that attack, and simultaneously pinpointed and erased every remaining Dark Asura in the province, leaving none. Fang Chen was secretly horrified. The Dark Asura tribe was actually hiding a 9 Hells Asura king. Were it not for the deterrence of that ancient sage, preventing the 9 Hells Asura king and the 9 Suns giant emperor alike from descending upon the central plains, heavenly province would likely have been in grave danger. And he finally understood completely why the junior emperor's merits could surpass even those of the star Abyss Great Sovereign. Because he had saved half of Heavenly Province and countless living beings, and annihilated innumerable hosts of the Asura clan, single-handedly altering the perilous situation of Heavenly Province. This salvation and enemy destruction were truly boundless in merit. Thunderbane Sage said helplessly, It seems we can only find a way to go to the Heavenly Realm and capture some Dark Asura clan members to interrogate. But the danger is considerable. The several sages all frowned deeply. Although the clamor for a counterattack against the Heavenly Realm was ferocious, actually putting it into practice was fraught with difficulties. At present, they could not even ascertain the enemy's basic strength. Fang Chen had originally not wanted to reveal the existence of the Asura Empress's family. But things had reached this point, so he could only bring them out. He cleared his throat and said, There is no need for such trouble. By some fortuitous coincidence, I captured some Dark Asura clan members. Everyone showed expressions of surprise. How could Fang Chen, who was far away on the battlefields of taking Great Province and Primordial Origin Province, have captured Dark Asura clan members? Moon Sovereign's delicate eyebrows lifted slightly, and she said in astonishment, "He has even fought the Dark Asura clan." Silver Moon, Great Sovereign, was also greatly surprised and mused. Could it be some lost low-level Dark Asura clan members accidentally entering taking Great Province? Under the bewildered gazes of everyone, Fang Chen helplessly took out the spatial mirror. With a thought, a group of Dark Asura clan members was released. They were all strung together by a strange rope, their entire cultivation completely sealed tightly by it. Moon Sovereign focused and looked, unable to stop herself from blurting, "So many." But as she scrutinized them, her pupils suddenly constricted, and her voice changed pitch. "Wait, what is with those 5 Crown Asura kings? And that woman, what is she? She can't be an Asura emperor, can she?" Cold Moon Sage's expression changed drastically, and with a hurried flash, he protectively shielded everyone behind him, shouting in a low, warning voice, "Beware." The other sages were also badly startled by the appearance of the Asura Emperor, their hearts chilled as they all activated their merit divine steels, as if facing a formidable enemy. The spirit transformation cultivators present were even more terrified and fled in panic. No one expected that Fang Chen would casually pull out a living Asura Emperor. Fang Chen, however, nonchalantly reached out and pinched the Asura Empress's chin, laughing loudly, "Everyone, don't be afraid. She has been subdued and poses no threat. Allow me to introduce her. She is the Empress of the Dark Asura clan, captured by my scheme. The 3 young ones are her children, caught casually. As for those 2, neither old nor young, they don't even have names. I picked them up along the way, unimportant." The Asura Empress glared at him with eyes filled with murderous fury, yet powerless to resist. She could only allow Fang Chen to pinch her fair cheeks and sway them left and right, displaying her to the crowd. After Fang Chen's introduction, the Asura Empress's family wished they could immediately find a crack in the ground to crawl into, all hanging their heads, too ashamed to face anyone. The 2 Asuras who didn't even have names felt a profound insult. Picked up casually. Unimportant. Was that supposed to be human speech? The entire venue fell deathly silent as everyone stared dumbfounded at the 6 Asura clan members before them. 1 Asura Empress, 3-5, Crown Asura Kings, 1-4, Crown Asura King, and 1-9 Orifices Asura. Even more fantastical, that Asura Empress was actually the Empress Consort of the Dark Asura clan. She was the wife of the 9 Hells Asura Emperor, and the number 2 figure in the Dark Asura clan, second only to the 9 Hells Asura Emperor. The powerhouses of Heavenly Province had fought life and death battles against the Dark Asura clan, yet had never killed a single Asura Emperor. Yet Fang Chen, far away in taking Great Province, had captured such a big fish alive. Even more outrageous, he had even captured her entire family. Cold Moon Sage drew a cold breath, murmuring in a trembling voice, This is an even greater merit than mine in Heavenly Province. I can't help but feel that even the title of first on the 9 tablets is unworthy of his contributions." Moon Sovereign covered her red lips, her silver pupils rippling with unconcealable shock. He actually dealt with the Asura Empress's family without a hitch. If he were in Heavenly Province, I believe he would still unhesitatingly become first on the 9 tablets, and none could compare. Silver Moon, Great Sovereign, heard every word pierce his ears like thorns. He urgently wanted to refute, but seeing the Asura Empress docilely allow Fang Chen to pinch and humiliate her cheeks, he could not utter a single word of refutation. He could not imagine when he would be able to so casually toy with an Asura Empress like this. Even reaching the Sage Realm might not make it easy. A massive sense of crisis surged in his heart. In the campaign against the Heavenly Realm, he must quickly step into the Sage Realm. He must become Dao companions with Moon Sovereign before Fang Chen. Upon learning that all these Asura clan members were captured alive, everyone's eyes bulged wide as they flocked around to gawk. Those scorching gazes stared at the Asura Empress, until she was overwhelmed with shame and fury. She abruptly raised her snow-white neck and declared with fierce determination, "Do whatever you want, kill or mutilate me." Fang Chen, with a half-smile, retorted, "Why kill you? Isn't keeping you alive more useful? Tell me, what is the strength of your Dark Asura clan?" The Asura Empress's eyes blazed with fire as she snarled, "Do you think I would tell you?" Fang Chen flipped his palm, clasping a strand of purple lightning, and gently touched it to Tian Giant's forehead, snorting coldly, "Madam, you wouldn't want your children to die on after another before your very eyes, would you?" Once her weak spot was seized, the Asura Empress immediately surrendered. With tears glistening in her eyes, she humiliatedly whispered, "I'll obey you, everything you say. Just don't harm my children." She finally lowered her proud head, her beautiful face filled with resignation and submission. At this sight, the expressions of the heavenly province powerhouses all turned peculiar. Are we conducting a proper interrogation here?" Fang Chen's face flushed slightly, and he coughed once, urging, then confessed truthfully. He raised his hand and waved, untied the Azure Empress alone from the rope, leaving only her outside, while sending all the others back into the spatial mirror. He would later need to verify the testimony with Tian Jian and the others. He couldn't rely solely on the Azure Empress's one-sided account. The Azure Empress opened her mouth and dropped a thunderbolt. "Our dark Azure clan has one Azure Realm Lord." The sages present knitted their brows one after another, their expressions revealing unprecedented gravity. The dark Azure clan had actually, silently and without a sound, nurtured their own Azure saint. Just as a great stone seemed to press on everyone's hearts, the Grand Libationer of Heavenly Province slowly spoke, his voice steady and composed. "Everyone, for now set your mind at ease. The Azure saint will never make a move lightly, unless he is prepared for mutual destruction." Upon hearing these words, everyone felt a release in their chests, breathing a slight sigh of relief. The Azure Empress standing in the center then fixed her gaze on Fang Chen and spoke again. "My husband is none other than the 9 Hells Azure Emperor. Apart from him and me, the Dark Azure clan still has a full 10 Azure Emperors, of which 2 are in the 6 Hells territories, 3 in the 3 Hells territories, and a full 5 in the 1 Hell territory. As for Azure Kings, there were originally a full 400, but after 200 of them participated in the brutal slaughter during the expedition against your heavenly probe. And see, I no longer know how many remain. And the lowliest orifice-opening Asuras should number around 10,000. She spoke these words in a light and casual manner, but to the ears of the crowd, they were no less than a thunderclap on level ground. 12 Azure Emperors, 400 giant, like Azure Kings, and 10,000 orifice-opening Asuras. Such a sky-covering and sun-blotting terrifying lineup would probably be no weaker than even the formidable Ancient Giants clan. Fang Chen felt a piercing chill shoot from the soles of his feet straight to the crown of his head. Although he had long guessed the Dark Azure clan was no pushover, he had never imagined that this bone would be so terrifyingly tough. No wonder that the successive bloody battles between Heavenly Province and the Dark Azure clan had been fought with such earth-shattering darkness and rivers of blood. His thoughts raced, but a sliver of doubt immediately surfaced in his heart. He abruptly looked at the Azure Empress and demanded in a deep voice, "Since that is the case, why didn't you pour out all your strength and trample Heavenly Province flat in one FL swoop?" With the strength of these few Heavenly Province sages, they absolutely could not withstand the full-scale assault of the Dark Azure clan's 12 Azure Emperors. Upon hearing this, the Azure Empress's face flickered with hesitation. After a moment of silence, she explained, "That is because our Dark Azure clan, aside from dividing our forces to invade the Central Plains, must also constantly allocate a large portion of our troops to guard against the forces of the Northern Celestial Realm seizing the opportunity." This revelation, like a key, instantly unlocked the chains of doubt in everyone's minds. Indeed, the Angel clan was originally forced to retreat to the Northern Celestial Realm by the combined pressure of the Dark Azure clan and the Ancient Giants, and they may launch a frenzied counterattack at any moment. Under such circumstances, how could the Dark Azure clan dare leave the Southern Celestial Realm an empty citadel? Fang Chen listened and asked no further. With a wave of his hand, he returned the Azure Empress into the spatial mirror. Immediately after, he brought out the 3 Azure siblings and 2 other Azure captives. After a careful cross-check, Fang Chen found that the accounts from all parties were basically consistent, with no major discrepancies. For a moment, the air in the entire hall seemed to freeze solid, and a layer of frost seemed to cover everyone's faces. If we merely compare at the sage level, the Celestial Realm has a full 11 more Azure sovereigns than the Central Plains. This expedition would be like throwing eggs against a stone, and it might well fulfill the ancient Chan Buddha's earlier prophecy that all of us would be buried in that celestial realm. Fang Chen's expression was equally ashen. Fortunately, he still held a tablet of truce, which introduced immense variables into the sage-level battle. He took a deep breath, raised his voice sharply, and declared resolutely, "Give me 1 month. I will do everything in my power to summon enough reinforcements. If after 1 month the reinforcements we've gathered still fall short of the requirement, then we shall postpone the expedition to the Celestial Realm for further deliberation." Fang Chen's ultimate goal was to utterly destroy the Celestial Realm, not to bury the future of the entire Central Plains. If the final balance of power remained so disparate, he would rather abandon this grand plan to counterattack the celestial realm. Sage Lei Mai took a deep breath and stepped forward first, his voice like a great bell. I too will depart immediately to seek powerful allies beyond the realm. This eternal great undertaking is a duty that we, as sages, cannot shirk. Seeing Sage Lei Mai's declaration, the other sages all cupped their fists in agreement. Not one shrank back. Ancient Chan, Buddha pressed his palms together, a gentle Buddhist radiance shimmering around him. Chanting a Buddhist proclamation, he said slowly, "This matter is of grave importance, and now it is settled. In the coming month, I hope all major sects and factions will use this opportunity of meritorious rewards to swiftly enhance their strength and prepare well for the decisive battle ahead." Upon hearing this, the experts from various provinces instantly felt the urgency of time. They cupped their fists in farewell and transformed into streaks of light, converging toward the Imperial Observatory. The Pavilion Master of Heavenly Secrets stood rooted to the spot, his face full of hesitation. He quickly stepped forward to meet Fang Chen, who was descending from the air, and asked wordly, "Should we temporarily remain in Tianju or return to taking Great Province?" Fang Chen answered almost without thinking, "We stay in Tianju. As long as that Asura Holy Sun hasn't been eliminated, Heavenly Secrets Pavilion will not have a single day of peace. Right now in Tianju, above us is the unfathomable great libationer of Tianju, and all around are powerful sages. If the Asura Holy Sun dares to show his face here, he will never leave alive." The Pavilion Master of Heavenly Secrets furrowed his brows deeply and muttered to himself, "I truly can't understand. His identity has been completely exposed. Why does he still cling to you like a vengeful ghost? Does he not know that once his whereabouts are revealed, it will be absolutely impossible for him to leave the Central Plains?" Fang Chen smiled faintly, patted the Pavilion Master on the shoulder, and reassured him, "Don't worry too much. He would never dare to linger in the Central Plains. In the coming days, I'll stay put in Tianju and give him no chance to approach. As time passes, he will naturally retreat in the face of difficulty." At that moment, the sky above the Imperial Observatory was already overcrowded. When the personnel from various provinces had come to Tianju earlier, they had arrived in orderly batches, making it seem well organized. But now, with everyone rushing to leave at the same time, the situation instantly spiraled out of control, all crowded in a dark mass near the Imperial Observatory. From a distance, the sea of swarming people looked like a vast dark cloud tightly blanketing the top of the temporary palace. Seeing this, Fang Chen couldn't help shaking his head with a wry smile. So many people crammed together. Aren't they afraid of losing their pants? The smile on his face had just bloomed when, the next second, it froze abruptly and vanished without a trace, for he suddenly realized something truly terrifying. If within this dense crowd, some of the Asura Holy Sun's fanatical followers had infiltrated, and they chose this moment to launch a sudden attack, the tightly packed cultivators around them would have no room to dodge at all. At this thought, Fang Chen's expression changed drastically. He urgently shouted toward the nearby first-rank Pavilion Master of Fang Chen, Senior Wuming, "Please separate them immediately." The first-rank Pavilion Master of Fang Chen was slightly taken aback. Though he didn't understand why Fang Chen had suddenly become so frantic, he complied without hesitation. He swept his sleeve fiercely, and a vast, oceanic force of sage power surged forth like an invisible giant blade, brutally slicing into the dark mass of people, forcibly cleaving he congested crowd in two. At the same time, he let out a light shout. Though soft, it carried an unquestionable authority. "All of you, disperse." No crowding. The voice, imbued with the pressure of the sage realm, boomed like thunder from the ninth heaven, making the divine transformation and nascent soul cultivators present tremble in awe. We not daring to delay, they immediately scattered, like the receding tide into the surrounding void. However, a bizarre scene unfolded. About 10 divine transformation experts from various provinces, their eyes slightly vacant, stood upright like wooden stakes, not moving a muscle. Fang Chen's sharp eyes instantly caught the abnormality, his heart lurched violently, and a chilling sense of crisis shot through his entire body. He urgently bellowed, "Beware of those people." As he spoke, Fang Chen acted decisively, summoning the 5-element magnetic origin mountain. The treasure mountain swayed in the wind, instantly expanding into a towering peak 30 meters high, crashing down to firmly shelter the members of Heavenly Secrets Pavilion below W. The moment he finished, those 10 divine transformation experts from various provinces, as if receiving a terrifying command, simultaneously moved in perfect unison and each produced a jade tripod. Every jade tripod was filled to the brim with dense, black, viscous liquid. exuding a violent, restless aura that made one's heart race with unease. It was none other than the terrifying poison from the great wilderness province, the enveloping demon liquid. Before anyone could react, the 10 of them simultaneously crushed the jade tripods in their hands. A horrifying shockwave carrying destructive force exploded outward. The enveloping demon liquid within the jade tripods, propelled by the violent shockwave, burst forth like a raging storm in all directions, drenching everything head on. The many divine transformation cultivators present instantly paled, and they all activated teleportation arts, desperately trying to escape this death zone. Unfortunately, it happened too abruptly. The vast majority of divine transformation cultivators had no time to react before being viciously struck by the splashing droplets of enveloping demon liquid. The sticky fluid instantly clung to them like glue. Although the amount of demon liquid on them was not yet much, immediately after, the second and third batches of jade tripods were crushed in succession. Countless amounts of enveloping demon liquid, like an black tsunami, came crashing down upon them. Once doused by this demon liquid, one's entire body would be soaked through and completely solidified, unable even to move a finger. Fortunately, the first-ranked pavilion master of Fang Chen, having been forewarned by Fang Chen, had already reacted first. With a grave expression, his resonant shout, imbued with the power of law, instantly resounded through heaven and earth. All things can be exchanged. With this great shout, more than half of the enveloping demon liquid that had been spraying like a rainstorm toward the many divine transformation cultivators was instantly influenced, said by the power of law, forcibly changing its trajectory. Like moths to a flame, it all converged and splashed toward the first-rank pavilion master of Fang Chen himself. He actually used his own body to make an exchange with everyone. In an instant, the towering figure of Fang Mountain's first-rank pavilion master was completely solidified in midair by the incredibly dense miasmic demonic liquid. The heavenly craftsman sage and the 9 nether demon venerable reacted almost immediately after. The 2 sages acted in unison, unleashing a mighty force that instantly neutralized all the remaining splashing miasmic demonic liquid. But before they could check on the 10 divine transformation cultivators who had attacked first, the 8 state-level teleportation arrays suspended around the Qinshan Observatory suddenly burst forth with blinding light. Groups of nascent soul cultivators, their eyes equally somewhat vacant, swarmed in like a plague of locusts from various states through the teleportation arrays. Their numbers actually reached several hundred. All of them held jade cauldrons in their hands, crushed the spatial jade talismans in their mouths with their teeth, then simultaneously teleported, dispersing to every corner of even and earth in the blink of an eye, and without hesitation, violently crushed the jade cauldrons in their hands. A heaven-shaking, earth-shattering rumble erupted, and in an instant, the entire space between heaven and earth was completely filled with miasmic demonic liquid like a black tsunami. Even the 3 sages working together had no time to resist anymore. In the mere blink of an eye, the land for 1,000 miles around was shrouded and solidified by that pitch black ink like miasmic demonic liquid. No one could escape. From a distance, it looked as if the forbidden zone of life from the great wilderness state had suddenly materialized in the core area of the heavenly state. The ancient Zen Buddha Venerable, the Thunder Annihilation Sage, the Cold Moon Sage, the Traceless Sage, and the Lord of Samsara Mountain, who had just stepped into the Sage Realm LL sensed this earth-shattering upheaval and flew over one after another. Upon seeing the scene before them, their expressions all changed drastically. Without hesitation, they all launched attacks, forcibly cutting through the boundless miasmic demonic liquid, desperately trying to rescue the divine transformation cultivators from various states trapped within. Meanwhile, the Grand Wine Priest of the Heavenly State, who was also solidified within, was now furious, his hair standing on end with rage. He shouted sternly, "It's the Asura Holy Sun causing trouble in the shadows. His target is Fang Chen. I will protect him. You go and safeguard the others." But just as the sages were exerting full effort in the rescue, a tremendous crack sound, as if the spatial barrier had been forcibly torn apart, suddenly echoed. Around the area shrouded by the miasmic demonic liquid, a boundless, vast void rift actually appeared. A terrifying void force burst forth instantly, forcibly sweeping everything in the surroundings into that void, drifting towards the distance. The massive cluster of miasmic demonic liquid, like black amber, was also uprooted forcibly and slowly swallowed into the void. The sages' faces turned pale instantly at the sight. They immediately understood the Asura Holy Sun's true intention. That madman actually planned to emulate the star Abyss Great Venerable and use this method to sink all the divine transformation powerhouses of the 9 provinces into the void. The holy land of Buddhism, how dare you behave so recklessly? The ancient Zen Buddha Venerable chanted a Buddhist hymn, his palms suddenly coming together. The ancient temple behind him boomed open, and countless golden Buddhist chants and hymns poured out like tangible streams, enveloping all things in a dreamlike Buddha light. Everything became extraordinarily sluggish. Even the terrifying devouring force, originating from the void, became limp and powerless at this moment. Seizing this once in 1,000 years opportunity, the ancient Zen Buddha Venerable extended both palms, supporting a large chunk of miasmic demonic liquid he had forcibly cut off, and timely rescued it from the edge of the void. However, several other chunks of severed miasmic demonic liquid were still ultimately swallowed by the endless void, vanishing without a trace in an instant. The miasmic demonic liquid shattered into pieces amid violent tremors, turning into thousands of mucus-like fragments. These fragments clung tightly to the solidified divine transformation cultivators within, sweeping towards all directions. The traceless sage, cold moon sage, and others hurriedly rushed into the void, exerting all efforts to rescue the swept-away divine transformation cultivators. Once they drift too far, finding them again would be like searching for a needle in a haystack. The freed Fang Mountain's first-ranked pavilion master, the heavenly craftsman sage, and the 9 nether demon venerable were all filled with shock and fury, and they shouted in unity on Azure, holy sun. But there was no time for anger. They could only suppress their fury and first gather the scattered demonic liquid fragments. While anxiously collecting one chunk of miasmic demonic liquid after another, the Fang Mountain's first-ranked pavilion master called out urgently, Fang Chen, where are you? He discovered divine transformation cultivators from various states one after another, but never saw a trace of Fang Chen. Far away from the main battlefield, a rather large chunk of miasmic demonic liquid was swept to a remote corner. It was so large because it enveloped a huge 5-colored mountain. And beneath the mountain, the 5 magnetic origin mountain was firmly protecting the disciples of the heaven's secret pavilion. They were far luckier than those divine transformation cultivators solidified within the mucus. Because the 5 magnetic divine light released by the 5 magnetic origin mountain, although causing everyone to lose their strength, had mercilessly blocked the mucus that had urged over earlier, preventing it from invading even a trace. Fang Chen's expression turned grim, his eyes flashing with cold light. What a good Azure holy sun! So this was your purpose in taking the miasmic demonic liquid from the great wilderness forbidden zone. Who could have imagined that the Azure holy sun would dare to brazenly attack in the heavenly state, right under the noses of all the Central Plains sages? Even more unexpectedly, he would actually create such a massive upheaval. Most of the remaining divine transformation cultivators of the Central Plains were all cast into this dead, silent void by him. What infuriated Fang Chen the most was that he had always used miasmic demonic liquid against enemies, but unexpectedly, today he himself also tasted its bitterness. But he no longer had time to care about these things, because he had already fallen into an extremely perilous situation. With no one around, it was the perfect moment for the Azure holy sun to strike. Fang Chen decisively took out a giant's pocket and said solemnly to everyone, please bear with this inconvenience for now. With a wave of his hand, he unceremoniously swept everyone into the pocket. Only by doing so could he face the Azure holy sun without distraction, lest they be caught in the crossfire. Just then a slightly smug, cold voice came from above without warning. Did you think that by hiding in the heavenly state, I, this holy sun, would be unable to do anything to you? Fang Chen's heart jolted abruptly. He rapidly emerged from the 5 magnetic origin mountain, looked up, his gaze instantly turning extremely solemn. He saw the Azure holy sun, now dressed in a set of white robes, a smile playing on his lips, standing leisurely atop the peak of the 5 magnetic origin mountain, looking down at him from above. The Azure holy sun slowly spoke. My mother left me some last words, and one of them taught me the way of survival. When circumstances are unfavorable to you, then muddy the entire situation and seek a glimmer of hope in the chaos. I have benefited from my mother's words to this day. Fang Chen stared intently at the Azure holy sun, his eyes filled with deep wariness and a trace of confusion. He couldn't quite figure it out. Even though he himself had indeed entered a dangerous situation, as the Azure holy sun had predicted, the Azure holy sun himself had also fallen into great risk. The other sages would soon trace them here. Once they surrounded him, he would be dead for certain. This kind of perilous act, like pulling chestnuts from the fire, really didn't seem like something the Azure holy sun would do. Or was he already fighting a desperate last stand? Fang Chen's mind raced, but his hand tightly gripped the 9-colored crystal he had already taken out. He snorted coldly. Then you can try the power of this 9-colored crystal as well. Last time it failed to kill the compassionate heart sage. Today it will be used on you. The Asura holy son smiled disdainfully, looking arrogant. In front of me, this thing is far from sufficient. Fang Chen's eyes remained calm. He knew full well that sages controlled laws. How could he possibly confront one head on with just a 9-colored crystal? But what he intended to do was not to fight against him at all, but to stall for time. As long as he crushed this 9-colored crystal, he could both temporarily force him back and create a huge commotion, attracting the sages to come to the rescue. In 3 breaths at most, the current deadlock could be resolved. However, before he could exert force to crush it, the Asura holy son smiled faintly. He merely flicked his finger, and a giant's pocket flew out from his waist. As the pocket burst open with a boom, over 300 nascent soul cultivators with somewhat vacant eyes were scattered in the surrounding void. Among them were even quite a few late-stage nascent soul powerhouses. Fang Chen's 5 fingers, about to exert force, abruptly froze in midair. These are all nascent soul cultivators from the Central Plains. The Asura sacred son had long been guarding against the 9-colored crystal in his hand, and had actually taken the Central Plains nascent soul cultivators as hostages in advance. The Asura sacred son smiled mockingly. Why aren't you crushing it anymore? Fang Chen's face immediately darkened. Once crushed, it might not necessarily harm the Asura sacred son, but it would surely kill all the nascent soul cultivators present. The Asura sacred son watched him leisurely, his tone filled with the composure of absolute control. Others might pay any price to save their lives, but you, Fang Chen, would not. Hand over the hell, suppressing soul, soothing sutra, and I will return these people to you unharmed. Fang Chen's mind raced, swiftly pondering countermeasures. PFFT. A muffled explosion sounded, especially harsh in the dead silence of the void. A nascent soul cultivator, closest to Fang Chen, spontaneously exploded into a mist of blood without warning. It was the Asura sacred son. He gently raised a finger and flicked it through the air, crushing the cultivator like an ant. Then he pointed that finger toward another nascent soul cultivator, a faint smile on his face. You may continue to consider. PFFT. Before his words faded, that person also instantly turned into a pool of blood mist. Then the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th. The Asura sacred son flicked his fingers playfully, without pause, as if enjoying a game of slaughter. Fang Chen's eyes split with rage as he roared, "Stop! I'll give it to you." With boundless hatred blazing in his eyes, he swiftly produced the hell, suppressing soul, soothing sutra, and gritted out through clenched teeth, "Asura sacred son, I will remember this enmity." The Asura sacred son made a grasping motion from a distance, and the hell-suppressing soul, soothing sutra was pulled free from Fang Chen's palm. He couldn't help but chuckle. Your weakness is truly so easy to exploit, ha ha ha. But the moment the sutra left Fang Chen's palm, a pitch black crystal carved with many eerie eyes was suddenly revealed in his hand. With just one glance, the Asura sacred son's pupils violently contracted, and he exclaimed in shock, "Realm artifact, Eye of Hell." Before he could react, Fang Chen suddenly grasped the Eye of Hell and activated it fiercely. This realm artifact could be activated with soul power, regardless of race. Thus, when Fang Chen poured all his soul power into it without reservation, every eye carved on the black crystal came to life at once. Countless dark ripples of gaze turned in unison and swept over the Asura sacred son's body. The light in the Asura sacred son's eyes immediately dulled into a vacant stare. He had actually been successfully controlled by the Eye of Hell, turned into a puppet. Even Fang Chen was stunned for a moment, so easily. That realm lord named Tong Yuan, his remnant soul relying on the Eye of Hell, could only control a single sage. He was merely at the divine transformation stage, yet he too could control a sage. He felt that something was amiss, but couldn't quite put his finger on it. But there was no time to dwell on it. He decisively took out another pouch and swiftly drew all the nascent soul cultivators scattered in the sky into it. Compared to killing the Asura sacred son, rescuing these Central Plains nascent soul cultivators was the most important thing at hand. Before he had gathered everyone, the Asura sacred son's eyeballs suddenly trembled, and he broke free from the control abruptly. He stared at Fang Chen with a mixture of shock and suspicion. Why is the realm artifact of the Dark Knight Asura clan in your possession? Fang Chen took the opportunity to gather the remaining nascent soul cultivators completely, clutching the 9 colored crystal and snorting coldly. Ask it yourself. Now, without the nascent soul cultivators as obstacles, he could attack without any reservations. But at that moment, an extremely furious roar hammered heavily into the void. Asura, sacred son. That voice belonged to the Grand Libationer of Tianju. Fang Chen's heart eased. Reinforcements had finally arrived. He looked at the 9-colored crystal in his hand, which had failed yet again, with a face full of disgust. This lump of stuff, was it determined to rot in his hand? Fang Chen felt a slight weight on his shoulder, as the Grand Libationer of Tianju materialized from intangible to solid, instantly appearing beside him. The elder placed a hand gently on his shoulder and said solemnly, as expected, the Asura sacred son's ultimate goal in all his scheming was indeed you. As long as we protect you, all his calculations will come to naught. Simultaneously, the 9 Nether Demon Lord and the ancient Zen Buddha Venerable also sensed the Grand Libationer's unusual movement and materialized together, arriving side by side. When they clearly saw the Asura sacred son before them, both wore solemn expressions. The 9 Nether Demon Lord's effeminate face showed chilling coldness. The Asura Emperor of the Hell Realm has actually thrown our central plains into utter chaos. It seems you truly do not take the few of us seriously. Before his words finished, 1,000 janked, all phantom of a close, dyed black serpent emerged behind him, radiating an extremely dangerous aura. The ancient Zen Buddha Venerable took off the ancient Buddhist prayer beads around his neck, silently chanted a Buddha's name, and the beads suddenly released the powerful spiritual pressure of a quasi realm artifact. Then he threw them upward, and the 18 beads instantly flew apart, stationing themselves at the 4 corners of this sealed space. They emitted brilliant golden beams of light that interlocked seamlessly, completely sealing off this area. The ancient Zen Buddha Venerable looked compassionate and calmly advised, Asura sacred son, lay down your butcher's knife and instantly become a Buddha. Surrounded by 3 central plane sages of the 2 tribulations realm, the Asura sacred son already had no hope of survival. However, an unexpected scene unfolded. The Asura sacred son showed not the slightest panic. Instead, his shoulders shook slightly. He lowered his head, and from his throat came a low, strange laugh that echoed through the sealed space, making one's blood run cold. Heh, 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 heh.